And welcome back to Roll for Story. We are continuing the Claude Coast arc with these fine folk, ready to delve back into the desert and ruins of this mysterious western continent. So, to give us a little recap on the last session, we have Carius to tell us, how did negotiations with the dragons go?
Right, so we've established with the dragons that we need to get the Star Sapphire. We get the Star Sapphire, they'll agree to our plans. That's good. We also managed to recruit a dragon to help us. That's awesome. On our way back, we got ambushed by 4 dragons. We managed to kick their butts. Well, mostly. We almost died to some extent, but we did win. One of them was that young dragon who my dad beat at some point. We then got back to Rashkar. Met a guy with a griffin who's like part of Gage's Air Force. Air Force, they don't even have airships. Who is taking part in the race and will get us visas. We found out that there's ghosts and goblins and all sorts of things in the Rattling Ruins, some of which are essentially some of which are like former racers that could never have been beaten, but they died too soon or something like that. And part of our plan is to try to get them to race so that they can like be put to rest once and for all. There's also some guy with some big, massive lizard thing. Karis is getting better with the Fulgurite, but still couldn't damage a blue dragon. He was close though. It did something extra. Not much, but something. And we got to Rashkar. We're about to have a long rest. Probably just knowing D&D, we'll have some weird dream sequence. And then we'll be heading off to the Rattling Ruins to deal with some undead.
All right. Nice. Okay, yeah. So you spoke with the the full orc innkeeper who runs the Eat, Sleep, Leave Bed and Breakfast, and he's told you about Ten and Nash, who were legendary racers during the Rashkar Rally. The 10 is the faithful companion, a massive warhorse. Sorry, no, 10 is the rider, sorry. And Nash is the warhorse. And Nash was supposedly the fastest ride in the desert. And 10 loved the Rashkar rallies and was the reigning champion until the tragedy. Apparently assassins came and took her life, but not without her taking them down with her. Now she apparently haunts the races, and well, so you put together this plan to go invite her to the race, such that maybe if you win, maybe her spirit will finally be put to rest. So
yeah,
let's jump right in. You guys have just come fresh from a battle. You're wounded, exhausted from the travel in the desert, and you're potentially settling down for the night. You bought rooms.
Yeah. Can Carius request a message be delivered to his family?
Yeah.
I get someone to deliver a message.
Sure.
Essentially, he wants to deliver a letter which he would write, basically informing them of the result of the negotiations and to see if they can find any information about the Star Sapphire, then basically let them know.
Did we get our familiars back, by the way?
Yeah, I got mine back.
Or was it just you? Or was it both of us?
I don't know if you got yours back. I know I got mine back because I used it to translate for me.
Because if that's the case, then I could just send the Raven a message.
That's
Lahiri says, "Well, I'll be heading back there myself." So
yeah, that's a much better idea, Lahiri. I honestly forgot you weren't coming with us. I kind of got used to having you around. Also, tell Dad I'm beating his records. That's
Yeah, that was. I'm still kind of flabbergasted you managed to pull it off almost in one night. But
Yep,
step
I'm
2 is
good.
going to be a real pain if you don't know what to
Yeah.
do.
I've got to turn the thing back into lightning somehow.
That's right.
Still not quite sure on how that's possible, but I have a few ideas.
Okay.
Uh,
So
so,
I'll let him know everything that's happened.
yeah, probably not mention that we've got our friend
Oh, right.
Iriun.
Yeah, you're
I
you.
think that's it. Uriun. Or if you do mention him, don't mention that he's what he is. Just say we met a companion who's going to be helping us and they're useful. And anything you want to say to like big us up in their mind, I'm good with that as well. You know.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll set it off in the morning.
Yeah. Guys, are we after we've dealt with the rattling ruin stuff? Are we heading to Gagia straight away? Where are we heading to the Dry Oasis? Both are probably good information hubs to some extent, but for different reasons.
I mean, I think it depends on whether or not we get these visas. I mean, if you beat this guy, what's to say he's not going to withhold it?
That is a very good point.
So if for any reason he decides not to give the visas, then we're probably going to have to go to the Claude Coast to acquire some by other means.
So, right, so we'll be heading to the Dry Oasis, I think, first, and then from there we'll head to Gagia.
Well, obviously that's just if he doesn't give us the visas. Otherwise,
Well,
we could just go straight to Gadia.
Well, so
I mean,
he doesn't
it might
carry
be.
visas with him, right? So he would have
Yeah,
to.
but like what I mean is if he's still gonna give us the visas, then we'll go with him back to Gadia. Whereas if he's like, oh no, you beat me in the race, I'm not gonna give you them now, blah 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 blah. You know, you wounded my pride.
Yeah, so probably if anyone's available, send someone suitable to the Dry Oasis and someone suitable to the Gagia to look for us, and then that's probably your best bet. We're not sure where we're going to be, and we don't have any ways of doing that sort of messaging, so...
I will give her the address to Malone's premises. Because obviously if we're going to the Dry Oasis, that's where I want to head first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or is she in Gadia? I can't remember.
Her, she's in neither. First of all, but if you want to know where,
No, I mean like her residence while she was.
Yeah, that was in the Dry Oasis.
Yeah, so that's the one for the Dry Oasis. If we're in Gadia, then we might be a bit trickier to find.
Actually, that's a good point. Would Carius, having to probably have traveled to Gagia on trading missions in the past, have a particular inn or tavern that he's most likely to stay at when he's been there?
There's tons of places in there, but one in particular. Let's have a look. I would say you liked the wharf. There was a nice place where you could still see the sea.
Yeah,
So it was close to the wharf, somewhere right in the actual
that makes sense.
in the port.
Yeah, so we'll probably be at one of the port inns in Gadia.
Yeah.
If not, I'll probably leave a message at one that they'll know, you know. But we should probably all get some rest. We've had a difficult, and frankly, I'm not sure whether the most difficult part of the day was the combat or the conversation. Honestly, both are equally traumatic to some extent.
Yeah.
I just hope we haven't made any promises we can't keep, because that would be bad.
We all look at the villain.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Promises we can't keep.
Yeah, yours is literally, we're going to give them a potion of immortality. Ours is, we're going to find this lost jewel. I don't know which is more impossible sounding, to be honest.
I never said that I would give it them. I said that I had the potential of making it to be able to give it them. It was
I don't think
never.
they will. I don't think the was it the primordial? The head one, was he the primordial? Or is he the
Primeval.
The primeval. I knew it was one of the two. I don't think he will accept that. I have a feeling your point was one of the big turning points. That you might be able to offer this guy immortality.
That was the point. Might be able to.
Yeah.
But it's also one
that...
of my goals, so I'm gonna give it a good try.
Right. Before we take the long rest, I would like to speak to Irina.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. So, this whole Fouundry thing, you know, the lightning crystal that we risked our lives to get at one point.
The big pointy stick. Yes, I'm aware. I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, I managed to, according to Lahiri, get past the first bit of training in record time. The second bit involves somehow turning this crystal back into lightning.
Okay.
And as probably the more knowledgeable magic user, even though like you're more of a fire user and I should know more because I'm the storm user, I thought you might have some ideas.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pull out a bit of paper and like a bit of charcoal or something. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to use my journal. I'm going to flip to like a pair of clean pages and just lay it flat on the bar or whatever. And I'm going to start drawing out like the water cycle.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got the grass, you've got like the sun making it go up into the air, becoming the clouds, becoming rain, coming down and doing the whole cycle. It's like, you're essentially doing that. You're probably considering the lightning stays as it is right the way through, whereas it's actually not. It turns into like a type of energy once it enters the conduit, the fulgurite, whatever. It's not lightning once it's in there, because it becomes a form of, like when the dragons use it, you know, it becomes a form of static and then it ignites again as it exits. Like the water in the air sort of thing. It doesn't stay water and it becomes gaseous and all those other things as it cycles around. You need to adjust yourself to the changes. It's not a permanent state. You need to change as it changes and make it ready to go back. So kind of like, you can't really do it with fire because like if you burn a log, it doesn't turn back into a log afterwards, you know?
So taking this as water, if we use water as the thing, this is currently essentially ice. So I would need to somehow find a way to turn it into a gas and then heat it further to make...
So obviously if someone throws a snowball at you, right, it's compacted, it's like ice, right?
Yeah.
It comes at you, you absorb the element. So how do you break it down into your body to absorb it? You have to melt it first, then heat it into sort of a gas, either that or absorb it as water. It then needs to come through your body, and then you need to push it back out and solidify it again.
You know, whilst initially that sounds like nonsense, I think I kind of get what you mean. Essentially, it's almost like the reverse of absorb elements in a way.
It's not even reversing it, it's just a cycle, it goes round.
Yeah, okay.
What's the other way we can do this? Okay, so you've got a bar of chocolate. And you want to make something chocolate coated, right? So you melt the chocolate down, you put whatever you want in the center, and then you let it cool, and then it solidifies again.
So it's
You
like
need to
states of
find the
matter.
harmony that goes all the way along to make it get to that solid point again without ruining it. Like, you know, when you reheat chocolate and then you set it again, sometimes you get that horrible white dusty stuff where it hasn't
Yeah.
set properly. That's what you
Yeah.
got to avoid. That's probably where you're losing all the energy for the lightning.
Huh. Sorry, now I'm just thinking of that in the chocolating terms, because that is actually one of the hardest bits of working with chocolate. It's the whole like melt.
The best way to
Yeah.
learn is talking about food.
Honestly, I do agree. So the lightning is one state of matter. The Fouundry is another state of matter. I can see how the lightning becomes the Fouundry. I just have to somehow in my head reverse that process, work out what the reverse is.
Okay, the Fulgurite is think of it as like a magic wand, right?
Mm.
It doesn't create lightning, it's created from the lightning, right?
Yeah.
The lightning passes through it. You don't have to change it into the Fulgurite, you just need to make it pass through it seamlessly. Like, you know, if you pass wind through a tunnel, nobody laugh. You know, you've got to think about air resistance and things like that. Like, lightning going through the Fulgurite, you're going to lose something because it's not aerodynamic.
So I also have to deal with the resistance. That makes sense.
But
That
then
does
again,
make
that's what I mean. You have to adjust it to whatever it's passing through. Therefore, that is you or the Fulgurite.
Mhm.
You have to alter the substance as it passes through you.
Okay, I think I've got some ideas with that.
I know what I mean in my head.
Lahiri,
Yeah, no.
Lahiri actually kind of nods along with this. She's being very quiet because, as said before, she doesn't actually know how to do the next step. But she said, I think that's something I remember my father saying. It sounds like Irene is along the right lines.
Okay,
You need to learn how to adapt something as it passes through you. And I know the last step is something you've already tried to attempt, but you're not ready to skip step 2 yet. Because you tried to imbue your lightning with Riley's power, didn't you? And that was when
Yeah.
you used your cleric powers. She says,
Yeah.
I know that's something in the last step. But you need to get to that step, you need to know how to do this part first.
I'm wondering, I've just had a thought. It's really obscure and it may be really weird. But I have one more spell slot. So we could try this.
Okay, I'm curious. What have you got in mind?
How dark is it outside at the moment? Is it quite late still?
Yeah.
Okay, we might need some light because otherwise that's going to make this tricky, but I don't really want to do it inside a building, just in case.
The mansion.
Well, no, we can't
Yeah.
use the mansion.
Oh no, you can't do that anymore, can you? You used it.
Yeah. In which case...
Wait, do you have dark vision?
Yes.
We're fine then.
Yeah.
I always forget about dark vision. That's fine. Okay, so let's... If we go outside...
Okay. Head outside. Completely, probably derailing Chris's plot, but also getting him chance.
You head into the... No, this is fine. You head into the starlit sky. The sands have cooled down, and it's starting to go to like freezing temperatures. But there's still enough of a heat in the air that you're not having to bundle up.
Sorry, I'm just reading something because I don't know. Okay. In theory, it should work, but it may not because reasons. Okay. So we're gonna stand outside. I'm gonna stand a distance away from Carius. And what I essentially want to do is I'm going to use smoky form and turn myself into a smoke cloud. I am then going to fling myself at Carius and have him attempt to do absorb elements using me, so I can almost guide him through the process from the inside and have him throw me back out.
Some kind of weird Osmosis Jones kind of thing going on.
I'm honestly liking the idea.
It's an
She's
air
like-
element.
Yeah, technically she's like soot and stuff, so it's almost like hot air, so I'd be absorbing the heat, I guess.
It goes horribly wrong and Carius and Irina get fused into one.
And we become the most powerful caster in existence. As we'd be two 13th level characters fused into one. We'd be so ungodly powerful.
Okay.
That's not the goal here, by the way. The goal here is
No.
just so he can get a feel for what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Actually, just before we do this,
Kyriosna.
can Candlewick communicate with others? Because I know you like communicate through like hot and cold sort of thing.
So, Canada can only be attuned by Irina.
Yeah, but
The hot and cold
re-
sensation is something that he pulses to her through their
Yeah.
bond. It's not something that he
what
can do with
what
other people.
what cantrips do you have?
Irina can at least translate.
Sword burst, mage hand, create bonfire, and my eldritch sniper.
Okay, let me just check one of those spells a moment, because there's one in particular that might work.
Because I did think about the others, but none of them are effects that can move apart from the sword burst, and I don't really want to be throwing swords at you because it's an elemental thing I'm trying to explain.
From a story perspective, when Irina uses create bonfire, is the bonfire essentially part of Candlewick?
Yes, anything to do with the fire is basically Candlewick.
Exactly, yes.
So all of her eldritch blasts are Candlewick.
Mhm.
So if I was to absorb elements on create bonfire, because that's an elemental spell, so I could absorb elements on it, then I would have essentially have absorbed part of Candlewick, and Irina would be able to talk me through the process that way.
Potential. I'm not going to give you a yes or no until you try something.
Yeah.
My concern is obviously the fact that I know Candlewick can explode people from the inside, so I'm not so keen on that idea.
But I
Yeah.
am fire resistant.
That's true.
Cool.
So which one do you want to attempt?
Let's start with create bonfire, as that's because for all we know we'll get ambushed in the night and you might need that spell slot for something. So let's try the cantrip.
All right. So create bonfire. You create a bonfire on the ground that you can see within range. Until the spell ends, the magic bonfire fills a 5-foot cube. Any creature in the bonfire space when you cast a spell must succeed a dexterity saving throw or take 1d8 fire damage. A creature must also make the save when entering the bonfire for the first time. Blah 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 blah.
Right. So essentially, you're going to set Carius on fire, and then he's going to absorb that fire, which is technically absorbing Candlewick, and then in theory, we might be able to do something with this.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, technically, this isn't done with lightning, so it probably won't be out, but it might help get the idea.
It's just to help you with the theory.
Yeah, so I will absorb the fire, which I already have resistance to fire, so you can't double up on resistance, unfortunately, because that'd be really cool. I'm gonna
Okay,
absorb
so
fire.
you step into the bonfire because obviously it doesn't emit power; it's just constantly there.
Yeah.
There is a rising heat from Candlewick, Irina, almost as if it's getting hotter and hotter, like anticipation.
So he's excited rather than angry.
No, yeah, he's gonna see where this leads. I think there's a prickling heat that's rising as well. It's definitely excitement, anticipation.
All right, just
curiosity, perhaps.
behave yourself and please don't blow him up.
There's a sort of rising heat, and then it dips back down again.
He's a friend. You can't blow him. There'll be plenty of other things to blow up. And you guys can all hear this conversation. She's essentially talking to herself.
Yeah, and Carrot is just like, I'm used to this by now. I've known you long enough. Alright, so I'm basically trying to absorb this fire
Okay.
and then transform the fire. So well, it's
Right,
more
you need
of
to do it in a
absorb-
way that's like passing it through you without hurting yourself. Like, I know you're resistant, but obviously you wouldn't be to lightning, so this is a good example to use.
I am actually resistant to lightning as well.
Yeah. So roll damage
Stupid
for the
resistances.
roll damage for
Yeah.
your creative bonfire,
Yeah, it
I already
has
did. It's 13.
and then
Which
well, how
we
much did you
passed.
absorb?
Well, technically, I'm already resistant. I can't double resistant, so
No, but
So
how much
I would
did
take-
you?
I would take 7, I guess.
Right.
because I'm
Okay. So you take 7, and then so
And
half of
then
that is absorbed effectively, almost.
Does he technically take a trigger as well? Or not? Because obviously I can prevent that.
You feel Candlewick urging you to do so.
No. No,
and
we've
the
had this
absorb
discussion.
element
Not to
is-
friends.
the absorb element is 5 fire damage worth. So I've absorbed 5 of it, I guess.
Okay.
in this
All right.
case.
Candlewick is physically trying to spark something within Carius.
No.
You feel a wave of heat sort of buffet you on your face.
No.
Well,
It does
This-
so
this-
again.
this is
No.
Karis is just like
Feel-
absorbing its heat, and it's just like, Irina, could you ask Candlewick if he's attempting to help me with this situation or if he's trying to just blow me up?
He's having too much fun. Candlewick, if you blow him up, I'm not talking to you for 3 weeks.
Really? I'm only worth 3 weeks?
He gets lonely, nobody else can talk to him.
You smell a stray, like a stray weft of smoke.
I mean, I'll put you away and I'll use a different sword for like 3 weeks.
The smoke goes back into a heat, and it's just a warm heat, a comfortable heat actually.
Okay.
So so from what I've got, I've turned the fire into heat within me.
This is just all Irina experiencing this at first.
Yeah,
But if you take the damage and Irina is letting Candlewick do something else, then the next part happens. So, are you letting Candlewick get a charge on him?
No.
There's a load of smoke again in your nostrils, Irina. And so you've absorbed fire. What's next?
So I've absorbed the fire. It basically, how I'm seeing this is it's basically being converted into heat energy within me, because
Mhm.
it's not. Because unlike electricity, which could pass through like the electrochemical receptors and stuff, like Killua style, Carius can't literally hold a fire in his belly, for example. So it'd have to be converted to heat, and then he's then going to try to swing his glaive and convert it back into fire. So he's sort of done that matter transfer from fire to heat to fire again.
Sure. Yeah, he has. And you do so if you want to swing your weapon, expel the heat. As such, as it always has, fire emits from your glaive and it sparks across the ground, turning some of the sand into melted globules. Kind of a glassy, kind of glassy, but it's not smooth. It almost looks a little bit like fulgurite, because of course the outside of the fulgurite is melted globules of sand.
It's like the lightning scar, which always slipped my mind when I want to say it. Okay.
That part, no problem. You've seen it, you've done it. It works.
Right. Now, Irina, that sand on the ground, that glass, is essentially what fulgurite would be, but it's like a fire version of fulgurite. I suppose you could call it vulcanite or something at this point.
It's called glass, you moron.
I was trying to be poetic with the name. Now,
it's literally glass.
You feel like a flicker of flames, like back and forth.
Carry on.
Can you think of a way to turn that glass back into fire? Because that's essentially what I need to do. Because the lightning hits the sand and becomes fulgurite, and now I need to turn that fulgurite back into lightning.
Okay.
Somehow. That's the bit I'm struggling with. I kind of get the matter transfer, like different types of matter. I can even potentially see, like, maybe if I heated up the fulgurite somehow, I might be able to turn it into a gas and then further heat that to turn that to lightning. Wait. I'm going to ask Irina at this point because this should be something Kara should know, but he just wants to confirm it. Is lightning essentially superheated gas? Because isn't that what plasma is, right? It's like the state beyond gas. Like if you heat up high enough, it goes from gas to plasma, which is what lightning is, right? Or am I making that up?
It is.
I need to Google this.
No,
I do not know.
He is right. The discharge is produced as an electromagnetic radiation from which very hot plasma is created by the rapid movement of electrons to brilliant flashes of visible light in the form of black body radiation. But
So,
don't worry about the sciencey part. What you're trying
I
to
don't know.
do...
He asked me a question. I don't know the answer.
Okay, well, you can roll an intelligence check.
Intelligence.
Yeah, not Arcana, because this is the science behind it.
Intelligence.
He's talking about the science behind this lightning, and there is actually no scientific description for how he is absorbing fire and then creating it on the end of a spear and then hitting it again. So you've come to believe that you're probably not going to get anywhere with applying science to this. Yes, what he's saying is correct, but it's not applicable, and it doesn't make much sense to you trying to apply it either.
well, what I'm thinking, and this is Karis sort of talking to himself, but also to Irina, is if I can send enough lightning through this to heat it up enough to turn it into a gas, and then heat it even further into lightning, that technically turns the fulgurite back into lightning.
Okay, well,
At this point, Llewellyn, you wanted to find Irina, didn't you? Llewellyn?
I did in terms of sleeping arrangements because I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, they've gone back outside, so you probably get word of this. It's just that this conversation is when you would walk in and you hear them talking about trying to turn something into a gas, practically disintegrating something, basically. But
Yeah,
go ahead, Irina.
Yeah.
okay. Well, if you're trying to think about it scientifically, rather than magically, like the way heat is generated is by vibration. So essentially what you want to do is, using the fulgurite, you need to cause a vibration that is strong enough to create lightning, essentially. So you almost want to, you know how lightning is accompanied by thunder. Maybe you need to add some sound to it. Theoretically, I don't know.
Just
Lightning
shout
is a very
really
different
loud.
substance than fire.
So
Just say you're not going to get anywhere if you think scientific.
no,
I
but
just said that.
yeah.
Well, I
How-
technically read a book on science and energy.
but
and
now Carius is
You have
actually
actually.
from what Lahiri says. This second step is meant to be a test of faith, right, more than anything else, right? Or
She
is
said
the
that if what you thought was improbable, trying to get the exact measurement so that the electricity was even on both sides of the fulgurite, then the next step is going to sound impossible. And only through faith of some kind of miracle will it really come to fruition.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But she said not to get ahead of yourself because the next step after that is where you truly are going to be using Riley's influence.
Yeah.
So
I just sort of
So
look.
it's basically the middle point. It's the middle point between magic and divine almost.
Yeah.
It's going to be both required for this next part. But yeah, Lavelle, you just walked in when Irina and Karis were trying to find the word disintegrate in the vocabulary for turning something into gas.
yeah, what do you guys turning?
Right.
Also, it's very clear, without even need of an Arcana check, that just the school of magic that talks about turning matter from one thing into another is transmutation, Llewellyn. And although the sorcerer and warlock have great magical capabilities, they're not so learned through the different types of magic that exist.
What are you trying
The
to turn
schools.
to gas?
Wait.
The fulgurite,
Since when is Gust a transmutation spell?
because it is energy, turning one thing into another, I guess.
I suppose it's weird. Like I actually have Control Winds is a transmutation spell as well. That feels weird.
Energy.
It's about the control of energy, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but I thought like, I mean, but it's not like changing the state of energy, like transmuting it. It feels more like you're just I mean, literally, it's manipulating more than transmuting, but whatever. Right. So essentially, Labellum. So the first step of this process of being able to use lightning to damage things that shouldn't be hurt by lightning is to basically be able to do enough, basically get the input and the output right, which Andy was a great help with. And I owe her some form of pastry, probably, or maybe some bread. But the second step is to somehow turn this crystal, which is dragon breath that hit sand and turned into this crystal, back into lightning.
So essentially, you've got energy in stasis that wants to go somewhere, and you need to remove the crystal layer so the energy can go somewhere. Because
I looked to Lahiri to see if that makes sense.
it wants to
Kind
go in.
of. I will point out one last thing I've said a few times is that our father, he had a mentor at this point. He didn't figure it out on his own. He went out into the desert and he would spend days at a time. And then when he came back, he was either very frustrated or very triumphant with what he had learned or failed that day.
Because I could try two things with this. I could try and use creation to take that crystal and turn it into something else, which should remove it from the lightning, in theory. Or I could disintegrate it, because disintegrate removes objects but not energy. But if you look at the Vulgarite, is there a direction that the lightning is would have been traveling in the Volgarite. So it's like
Yes, they would have. It would have gone down into the earth and spread out, creating
So-
forks.
essentially you want this to be turned, but pointing at yourself. If we were to get them, and you don't want to be stood on the ground because then it will try and pass through you into the ground. So you want to be flying when this hits you, so you can fit within yourself.
That makes sense. Probably not something to do immediately. I need to think of this, but
First we need to get rid of the layer. I don't have the spell slots to do this today, but
yeah, right.
in the morning.
Okay,
give
I
that a
have
try.
one other thing to try.
Yeah, we do
I
need to-
want to go find Kashan to ask his opinion on this.
He's gonna stun it.
I
and
do
it's
have
over.
one other potential
Oh.
theory.
Yep.
Just
Right,
because of
go.
what Lahiri has said about it seeming impossible. Maybe it's thinking about it in the wrong way. Maybe you're not supposed to be projecting. Maybe you're trying to reverse it.
But
That makes sense, but how?
Well, that's the point. It's supposed to seem impossible.
that's like turning back time.
Like, you want to turn it back into lightning, right? Therefore, you need to do it in reverse, not going forwards.
Wait. Turn back time.
Do you need to absorb like the physical fulgurite and convert it that way?
Garrus looks at it. I
Do it.
mean,
Eat it.
I could try to eat some of it.
That's not what I meant.
Or
Oh my god.
wait. This is
I'll add it to my
listening to it and stuff. Does it? Because Karis would obviously be very familiar with the sound of static and the sound of lightning, etc.
Yeah.
Does this sound like there is energy stored in it still?
When you say it sound like it, currently it's not
Right.
making any sound.
Okay, so if Karis has an idea, if I use shocking grass to pull a small amount of electricity into it, just a tiny amount,
Mhm.
it's the electricity within it seemingly more than what I output, essentially, if that makes sense. Like, does it feel like there's more
Empowered.
Yeah.
It feels like as you push electricity into it, it does feel like a conduit for it because you've attuned to it and it's basically your spell casting focus. So it has become a focal point. So it's not that it's creating more energy, it's that it is streamlining that expulsion of energy into a single bolt that is then administered as that spell.
Okay. So there's not any.
Think of it like a funnel.
So it doesn't feel like when Karis is doing this, there's like it's almost like just trying to think of how to explain it. It's like as he puts the electricity in, it's almost like causing a vibration, which is like releasing some of the stored energy that is within the fulgurite, essentially. Because obviously, whilst it's crystalline lightning, it's not an unlimited source of lightning because it was just one breath, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a funnel of your power. So you kind of expend it. It does push it together. So you could say in that case, the magic kind of vibrates in of itself, heating it up, focusing it.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the weirdest things I've done. Karis is going to try to stab himself in the leg with it. And try to absorb that energy.
Oh my god.
As you cast shock and grasp into it, you mean?
Yep.
Right.
I got to shock and grasp myself, essentially. While
Yeah.
I focus.
Cool. Okay, sure. Go ahead, cast shock and grasp at yourself. Does
Would
a
you believe
16
that I miss?
You stab it into the leg, and you see the.
Do I have advantage as I'm attacking myself?
I guess you can
Unless-
choose not to defend from yourself.
Sure, but this is the electricity, whether it actually
Yep. Yep.
impacts. So what happens
It
is when he stabs down into the leg, you don't stab into your leg, by the way. You just sort of like push it down. The electricity just disperses and crackles over your body. You can't turn off resistance to lightning, and as such, it kind of just disperses around your body.
Yeah. Okay. Try that again. I'm going to try this 3 times, and if it doesn't... Okay, that
Yeah.
definitely hits.
This time you
Nice.
focus it much further, and you're holding it almost against your leg so that there is nowhere for it to go. And you push in an uncomfortable amount into your skin, and at that point, the lightning shoots down into it. You're grounded, so it just disperses all over your body.
Damn it.
Um,
Sorry, rather than being grounded, can I do this whilst I'm on my glaive so I'm not touching the ground?
okay, sure, yeah.
So I'm not grounded.
Okay, now you
So
fly out. You can do.
I've sent the lightning into the thing, sent it back into myself, not
Mhm.
via absorb element. So I'm trying to...
Because what it felt like when you was on the ground is that the electricity did find an exit point, and it went through into the ground and dispersed
Okay,
that way.
so now in the air it doesn't have a
Right.
ground.
Okay. So
So
now
can
it
I
doesn't
feel
have anywhere to go.
I can feel it essentially pulsing around me.
Yeah. So do it again.
Right. Okay. Let's give this. Damn it! It's really hard to hit myself.
And again. There we go. All right.
we
So you only take 4 points of lightning, which is probably a good thing
Yeah.
because this is painful. Yeah. So this time, instead of it dispersing into the ground, there's almost like a small delay to it. Like the electricity almost goes into a feedback loop, and then eventually it finds a home somewhere within your body and just starts electrocuting you. You can be struck in the air, believe it or not.
Yeah,
You can
I know.
become part of a
But it didn't
circuit.
have a point to Earth itself. So
Exactly right. It gets to a point where it's so powerful that it will jump. And that's what lightning is effectively. It's cheating. It's jumping from the clouds to the ground by using the air
Okay.
as a
So-
circuit, and that's
so
what lightning is.
Okay. So, as I shock myself, I'm then going to try to basically, before that shock gains a purchase within me, try to like fling it out, not using absorb elements or something, but basically just try to release that lightning to some extent.
Okay.
So I'm just going to use lightning lure for the sake of it because it's like a whip crack of lightning.
Yeah,
So
is that a cantrip? Yeah?
So I sort of stab myself in the leg. The lightning passes through me. I try to direct it through me, and then has a whip of lightning from my hand.
Okay. It felt like what you was effectively doing with the Fulgurite, and when you do this, it doesn't feel like you've just used the electricity that you kind of felt within you. It felt like you added an extra oomph to be able to manifest the lightning in the first place. Definitely used your capabilities. So the lightning lure was more powerful than the shocking grasp. And as such, you do see a crackle of lightning. It activates just as how it would normally. But for a briefest of moments, you realize that you might be able to pull off what you did with the Fulgurite without the Fulgurite.
So essentially, I feel like I could potentially almost do. I mean, without actually doing absorb elements, it feels like I could almost use lightning I get hit by in some other way.
Correct.
Okay.
But the Fulgurite is a useful tool, and you're starting to realize that your father doesn't carry around a massive staff of Fulgurite, nor does he carry a wand. But if he's learnt this power, why isn't he? And you start to realize the Fulgurite is simply training wheels. There's only a helpful tool in realizing how to unlock this power, but it's not necessary to. Yeah.
It's kind of like the crests in Digimon, which I know is a weird reference because initially when they get the crest, they need that to get to Ultimate, but later in the series,
Yeah,
they no longer need them because they realize they have that power within them.
exactly. Yes. Also, like thinking Naruto when he's unlocking the not Sharingan, the Rasengan, and he's got the water
Yeah.
balloon. The water balloon are just training wheels. You don't need the water
Yeah.
balloon to contain it. You can control it yourself.
So
So, with that, that's at least understanding this process a little bit better. But it still seems like a far-fetched assumption to be able to turn the Fulgurite back into lightning. Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you can find a way to skip that step.
yeah,
But
I come down to Lahiri and be like, when Dad was doing this,
mhm,
what was the weather like?
it didn't matter what the weather was like. You would
Okay,
go out
so
into the desert. Sometimes it'd be pouring with rain. Sometimes it would be a lightning storm.
did was it always like bad weather, or did he go out when it was like brightly sunny?
No, he went out on a variety of days, but mostly it would have been mostly at night, I think. You'd come back the next day, like you'd spend a night there somewhere. I even tried to follow him once, but he
Where
went
about
quite far. Hmm?
whereabouts did you follow him to, like before you stopped? Like what direction was he going?
He went out to the west, and then
Towards the woods or the mountains?
I couldn't tell at that point. I got to that point, and then he would disappear into the woods, and I dared not go in there. Fairly dangerous. But it was
Okay.
somewhere between the woods and the mountains.
Hmm. Why does this almost sound like he was trained by the blue dragons to do this? That sounds weird, but not impossible. Huh. Right.
What? What if it takes dragon?
Well,
What if it could take a dragon's lightning breath, turn it back into lightning?
I do remember something. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
There's one thing I do remember, though. I think this is the reason why I don't remember. There was this grinding of stone, this sound that was just almost maddening. Ah, I remember it put a lot of strain on my mind. I think I had a headache, and pushing on further felt very uncomfortable, so I turned back. I think I even remember there was a mild nosebleed, but regardless,
Now, from all of our travels between these three very powerful casters who are here right now, does that sound familiar to any of us?
Yeah.
As something like something we might have heard of, because I'm trying to think what that could be, but because I've been reading too much on Illithid recently, I'm always thinking that, but that doesn't make sense. In a way, it almost sounds like he managed to channel synaptic static almost, but through grinding stones.
that was she was following him,
Yeah.
and that's when she heard the sound. So it wasn't when he was practicing; it was when she
No,
was following
it was
him.
like as you got, like,
So the
it was almost like
location
he
was
was
this
going
sound.
to somewhere.
Sound familiar?
Does it sound
Yeah.
familiar? Llewellyn, roll an Arcana check if you want, and
Like
we'll see what happens.
A grinding
Ah.
sound.
19. It does sound some sort of like mental effect for sure.
sounds like
A grinding of stone doesn't particularly ring any bells though. Not like straight away going, oh yeah, that's that. Like it sounds very obscure, very unknowable. Um, but the fact that she kind of got mesmerized by it, it means it definitely is not some sort of mundane like earth tremor. It's some sort of mental effect.
Mental things that I've been against.
If she had a mentor who was powerful enough to understand transmutation magic,
I mean, I can cast synaptic static.
So can I.
here are your clues. They have a mentor to do this part. The process in which this is working is going to be transmutation magic,
Yeah.
and you've already kind of understood the cycle maybe is a bit too difficult to pull off, but there is some form of a cycle. Perhaps reversing that cycle is easier than going a full circle. And so Lahiri kind of summed it up to almost as if turning back time.
Was Malone his mentor? Because she was
No.
Terig's student, and of course he is the time mage,
Yeah.
and she was in the Claude Coast.
Don't know if you're strong enough to be able to go through there, but if you can withstand that terrible grinding sound, then maybe you could find it.
On stone.
But it doesn't ring a bell with that 19.
Does that? Because I realize like clockwork and stuff isn't such a major thing, but does that almost sound like the grinding of gears almost?
Potentially.
Wait
It's a theory.
a minute.
That is transmutation.
Kashan.
It is.
Isn't one of the members of the party from the town where the artificers would normally be? Isn't that Kashan? Right.
Yes. Yes, you're talking about Thumbridge.
Right. And that is a place with mages and stuff, and Karis would be aware of that. Right, back to my original plan. To Kashan! He's my next port of call.
So,
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
so just to be clear, do I want to make sure I have disintegrate for tomorrow?
You always have disintegrate. We managed to take down blue dragons with it.
But I normally circulate the. But
I've seen you use Circle of Death, which is a spell of roughly equal level. Don't have Circle of Death. So the necromancy would.
By the way, that's transmutation. Just in case that's where we want to go with that.
Disintegrate.
That actually makes more sense to me because you're literally turning like solid into dust.
Yes.
But controlling the winds, it still feels weird.
God.
It's modifying. It's modifying energy, so it's modifying wind. Doesn't have to be turning one thing to another. Modifying is also controlling.
Yeah. Right, so I'm going to go find Kashan, who is probably meditating somewhere.
Yes, it's quite late into the night now at this point, but Kishan, you'd be meditating, I assume?
Depends on how
Or asleep?
late it is. Probably asleep.
Okay, so Kishan is definitely sleeping up in a nice little ball.
Cam, would Kashan ever have mentioned that he is from Fouundry?
No, he never mentioned where he was from. In fact, no, he did, but not to you. To Elravan, he did. Because the vision.
Damn it. Damn you mentioning it to me, but not me. Right.
And in fact,
so
the
I'm
only
gonna
person who would know in this party is Labella.
Yeah. Right, so I'm going to go find Kashan because I have other reasons for it. Right. So I'm going to go find Kashan and be like, Kashan, I need your help with something. Kashan,
what?
stop. Right, sorry for waking you, but I'm trying to get the hang of this as quickly as possible just in case we have to fight blue dragons again.
Do you know what time it is?
To be honest, not really. I kind of got lost in the moment.
It's very late.
Right. I have a really weird sounding request for you. 2 weird sounding requests, but they're both related to the same thing.
You wake me up in the middle of the night for a weird request. I'm flattered, but no.
Not that kind of weird request.
Oh, thank
I'm not
God.
furry. Right. So the first bit of this is, and this is going to sound weird, I want you to essentially try to sense my ki when I strike myself with lightning.
Okay.
And the second bit is I want you to try to see if you can sense something like ki from this fulgurite when I strike it with lightning.
He gets out of bed with his
I know.
blanket wrapped around him. It's like, okay.
Essentially, what I'm trying to do is turn this fulgurite crystal, which used to be lightning, back into lightning. I'm essentially trying to turn back time. But I want to have a thorough and understanding of the crystal and my process whilst I'm linked to the crystal as possible.
Well, isn't the crystal just made of glass?
Sort of, but it also somehow works as like a focus for lightning. Not quite sure of the effects of it, but... And it was technically dragon lightning that sort of heated the sand, and it seems to react well to lightning.
Well, if it's just glass, then if you wanted to turn back time, you could simply crush it and turn it back into the sand that it once came from. Thus starting the cycle again.
I mean, possibly.
Can I go back to bed now?
But
Kashan cracks the code, back in bed within 5 minutes.
Right. The other thing was, and this is kind of a weird one. You've obviously been on a lot of adventures and done a lot of things.
I've done my fair share.
Does the sound of almost like the grinding of stones to the point that it almost causes like a headache and a nosebleed sound familiar to you at all? I'm basically describing what Lahiri described, but probably in better words because.
Yeah, roll me an intelligence or even just a history check.
So I'd imagine from Fouundry, if it's what I'm thinking is, he might potentially know. Damn it, Kashan.
Nope.
Never heard of it.
Nope.
Have you heard the Velen talking? That's probably the closest that you're going to get.
That is true. Right. Okay, so before I try to strike this thing with lightning, can you sense like any sort of... Because I realize, like, from my understanding, ki is like living energy and stuff like that, but can you get any reading of ki from this crystal?
I hold the crystal
You
in my
managed to
hands.
speak to the crystal on the ship.
You can't.
Okay.
Nothing.
Right, now I'm gonna...
Hold on. I've got to fit some kind of humor into this. I am getting a reading from this. Saying go to bed. I hand it back to him.
Right, one last thing, and then I will go to bed. I'm now going to use Shocking Grasp on it and hand it back and see if he can sense anything different with his like ki powers.
Okay.
Because there would technically be like vibrations and harmonic convergence, and he's used to like disrupting harmony with his key strikes and things. So I'm sort of going into obscure ideas, but I'm stuck.
He's just kind of blank staring at you, and he takes it back off you, and all of a sudden his hair's just gone.
Okay, roll a perception check. Kashan.
On me.
to
Get
his
nothing.
face.
Yeah, nothing. No. Oh my god. Okay. Natural 20s are a thing. Doing the impossible.
In fact, probably the shocking
Alright.
grasp. I just take hold of it. It's like I'm awake.
Okay. The tiny little vibrations kind of all echoing around almost sound like tiny songbirds. But there is definitely a voice within it as well. It sounds like the very element of lightning, but it's more than just speaking Auran, which is what lightning elementals and air elementals would actually speak. It's not a elemental creature, but rather the very inner spirit of lightning, the element itself. And you hear it just saying that a storm is coming. Yes. Conflict.
This is just saying the same things that the Dust Devils were saying? Or the wind itself, if I remember correctly? Because it was when we were listening to the wind itself speaking Auran, it was saying just there's a storm coming, a conflict. It's like destruction.
Kind of, yeah. Yes, yeah. There is a sort of destructive essence to this element, but not just destruction for the sake of destruction. More like conflict for the sake of conflict.
Yeah.
As if and you can hear it even further, and it says, "We must exist. Without us, there is nothing."
And this is coming from the crystal.
It's coming from the lightning inside the crystal, but
Uh,
it sounds like it is reverberating and echoing, and that you're hearing a voice from it.
Garrus can't hear this, so he's just like, what
And
do your cat ears hear?
he'll probably be repeating it as it said.
it sounds like it's not talking to you though, Kasham.
Yeah.
It doesn't even sound like it's talking with itself. In fact, with a natural 20, I'll tell you that you also feel there is a essence within yourself, because you can sort of hear languages. You can hear ki. Why can you hear that? Because you drank from that urn which had the water in it, and you can hear the water within yourself almost talking back to it as well, as if these two elements are communicating with one another. And you can actually feel it like swirling through your body. It's as if that never left your body. It hasn't like digested like normal liquid would. It is absorbed into your very ki itself, and that is
Get my philosopher's stone.
yeah, well, and it is speaking in a much more soothing tone, almost like it's sort of navigating this conversation with everything that this electricity is saying. It has a reply or a remark for, like it's adapting perfectly, like flowing like water to adapt to it. And it says, without us, there is nothing. You would not even have your words to communicate.
I have a feeling there's about to be a rap battle in my head.
Almost, yeah. But it sounds like they are two opposing forces that neither one will win. It sounds like they're actually, in a way, because they're in complete conflict with one another, they're actually in harmony. Because they can't exist without one or the other.
I
So
feel
it's
like
literally
I feel like
hearing the element.
I feel like I've got an idea from that, and obviously, Sean has said it out loud, but I'm not sure if Carius would get this. I'm just going to roll an intelligence check before I even suggest what I'm going to suggest. It tends sort of enough for the sort of thing. I'm not going to go into as much detail. It's like, and this would actually be probably almost like Karis's religion coming into effect to some extent, which obviously doesn't do anything else. It's the same role, but it's basically like from like Ryder. Ryder is obviously storm and sea, but the sea and water is like the creation of life, and the storm is almost like the destruction. So it's like a yin yang sort of thing. And without both, things can't exist, sort of thing. Like you have to have the yin and the yang. You have to have that balance of creation and destruction. But
Whilst you're saying that, we cut to Irina, where you can definitely hear that Candlewick is in a huff right now, like a physical huff, like puffing smoke out, making it a very uncomfortable sleep. But yeah, come back to you guys. Almost as if you had something to say.
If the lightning is almost again, I feel like this would have to be Karis's almost understanding of lightning. Like he's got this idea, but now because weather is related to survival, could I roll a survival check just to help me like see if Karis would get this? Because that seems very logical.
What is it you're getting? Because I think you might be picking up on something that you don't think your character actually understands, right? So
yeah, I mean, essentially, like I'm thinking of this, and this is because I've been watching far too much Avatar: The Last Airbender stuff. Like the way that lightning bending works in that is essentially there is positive and negative energy, and they separate those energies, which is obviously going by the science sort of thing, probably positrons and neutrons or electrons, which creates an imbalance. And then obviously the restorance of that balance causes the positive and negative to come crashing together, which is what creates the lightning, which is what lightning is.
Which is a conflict of opposite two opposites.
Yeah. So
yes. So yes,
but
what he's saying makes sense, and it actually makes sense as to why this lightning has been recurring at this point. You've noticed it 3 times now throughout the campaign, and Karis and Irina and Andy have both spoke to it, and now Kishan as well. Because it would go without saying that when Kishan says that it said conflict, that rings 100% a bell with when you spoke to Captain Montiput.
Yeah, and when I absorbed the spark thingy.
Yeah, whatever that was. Because when you absorbed some of that, sounds like you've got some of it in you. You also heard it when Andy was in the astral sea. They saw a physical manifestation of it, and it was when it was the Borzo. It was the Sun and Moon Temple, 2 opposites. And although lightning definitely wasn't a major theme, it seemed like it was subtly there behind the.
And caused by the imbalance between them, we had those like lightning elemental things.
And it also said that you would see me again real soon, and it was defeated when the 2 lights merged from both the sun and the moon, creating a unity, and opening the door was when the lightning dispersed.
So, based on that information, would Carius essentially be thinking that at the moment this crystal is in a state of balance almost. And in order to convert that back into electricity, he needs to break that balance. Would that make
Yeah.
sense?
That would make sense, but it's also perhaps one step to the last step.
Yeah.
You can't quite connect all the dots yet. But I will say though, this has gone on for quite a while. So what your clues are, if you really want to, because it definitely sounds like this is an impossible feat, and Lahiri said that many times. So it might not be something that you physically can get with either a check or a roll. Maybe a mentor is required if you want to follow that up. That's a great place to get the information for it, rather than kind of going in a head spin. Because right now you've been getting hundreds of different angles, and then none of them are wrong. None of them are like, okay, there, that doesn't work. They are all tied and linked together.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to figure it all out because it is quite literally a headache putting it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I think I've got some ideas, but Karis is going to sleep on this essentially.
Yeah.
And I apologize for taking up like an hour
No,
and
that's
or so
fine.
of the episode with this.
But I think a couple of people learned some things about other things.
Yeah.
Irina, definitely Candlewick had something to show or something to say. You can tell that after you've kind of retired to your own room, Candlewick's just sort of in a huff, like not like upset that you didn't let them do something. The fact that you didn't maybe trust them, you can sense that it's not like a huff as in how dare you. It's a huff as in like, ugh, that's a shame, kind of huff.
It based on this is just like the final bit that Karis would sort of be thinking. It's like step one is harmony, like creating that balance. Step two is chaos, and step three is perhaps finding the point in between almost.
You know, it has something to do with Riley, and you actually attempted to do something, which is the last step, but I'm not going to reveal that yet. And finally, Kashan, you did learn something a little bit as well, that the essence that you drank, that ability that you have, is in a way some sort of inner spirit. That's the only way to describe it at the moment, because you kind of liken it to ki, but you're not sure if it is a spirit, because it doesn't feel like a living thing. You've not had it impose its will or anything like that upon your body. It's more of an element than it is anything.
Okay.
And you harken back to when you saw the actual called the urn, the dais, which you drank it from. You remember seeing a large mural with circular elements of all different kinds of things. You never really looked into it. You just sort of saw it. That looks pretty, and then drank. But it definitely wasn't mentioned in like Lodorvu's scroll. Maybe he overlooked it as well. But you remember that the one like above the actual urn was the symbol of like water, effectively. It was like a drop of water, like
Gotcha.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Llewellyn, you did see something, and you remember kind of working out it represented planes, like elemental planes. But yeah.
Did all, and the subplanes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you also managed to read it as well. I remember somehow. Can't remember how, but you remember seeing the word language above. Yeah, cool. You do remember. Okay, good. All right. No, don't worry about tying it all together. But
I actually do have some ideas to tie that all together to some extent, but
okay,
Karis
good.
wouldn't necessarily.
There was one of a lightning bolt as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, you did roll a natural 20, Llewellyn, and Kishan's rolling a natural 20 now. And it turns out this lightning and this water that Kishan has in him seem to be one and the same, elements of a greater whole, perhaps. But anyway, let's go back to the morning. I think actually is the best bet. I'm going to say, everyone, you've fully rested, and it is the next day. So, Now you've got yet another destination within the Claude Coast that you might want to check out at some point, and that
Yeah.
is the Ode Woods and what lies there. Or
Okay, I thought it was cut off, and that was actually the Cloud Woods, and I'm just like, oh,
that is a capital O-U-D, Ode.
yeah.
Or the loud ones, because it seems to be very loud when you
Oud.
get near.
Oud Woods? Yeah, it might even be pronounced Oud.
It's
Can't remember.
pronounced ood.
It is
Oud.
Oud Woods, yeah. Id. And
It's,
then the
it's
Id Wood.
literally a type of wood from like hotter countries.
Oh.
It's used in like a lot of men's deodorants and stuff like that to give it that sort of woody, earthy smell.
Chris did not think of that when he created it.
No, that's exactly what it was.
It's
Can tell
very
by-
expensive, I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, no, I did. Yeah, it's actually Arabic, so it's like you said, warm sweetness mixed with woody and balsamic notes. So it makes sense. It's oud is woods plus heat. That's exactly why. Trust me, I thought about it. I don't just randomly come up with things. However, I forget the origin sometime down the line. But there you go. Anyway, you've all fully rested, so make sure you've restored hit points, spell slots, and prepared your spells for the next day. Yuriyun wakes up with a stretch. Ah, right now sounds like you're on a bit of a ticking clock. I
Yep.
appreciate that your quest for finding the star sapphire has many different branches, but if you wish to streamline those, I can be of help, I'm sure. Find information gathering, gossiping.
Well, I did have, and this is sort of perhaps an idea that might be pushing it a little. Once we get a safe distance away, would you be able to fly us to the Rattling Ruins?
Once we're out of
And if that causes offense, I apologize, but it seemed the quickest way to get there.
Once we're out of prying eyes from Rashkar, that sounds like a fancier way of getting there for sure, rather than traipsing through the desert on our feet.
Yes.
That can be arranged.
Excellent.
I can't carry everyone. Starts counting heads.
Irina would have snuck out very early to try and get a look at this griffin that's around somewhere.
Oh right, okay. I could carry at least 3 of you, perhaps.
Okay. Right.
Comfortable.
You've been around here for a while, so I assume you know where the Rattling Ruins is.
Indeed, yes. To the north of our own
Yeah.
homestead.
So, based on where we are and how fast you can fly, if you were to carry 3 of us, how long do you think it would take you?
We're going over the mountains. That's a lot quicker than going around. I would say half a day.
Okay. And you can carry 3 of us. And how fast exactly do you fly?
They fly about 160 on a dash. We've already worked out it doesn't quite make sense translating flight to long distance.
I
Like
know.
movement speed to long distance just doesn't make sense. But
Yeah, it was more. Carius was wondering if he could keep pace on his glaive without like ridiculous
Right.
pushing
when it goes
himself.
160 on a dash,
Okay, and Carius can go 100 on a dash, which would deal with 4 of us, but there's 5 of us.
What if you attached a rope to the back of his tail, pull you along?
he said comfortably, right? 3 of you. But if he's carrying more, then he's going to be going at half pace,
Yeah, okay.
which would then be more about the same as your glaive.
Okay, so if he
That would work, I guess.
and at half pace, it would still be quicker to get there via that method than via walking round.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure. It would take you 2 days to go, like, from here to the Rattling Ruins by walking around.
Yeah.
So it's effectively halved your travel
So,
time.
would you be willing to carry 4 of us? I know it's not the most comfortable.
Who's in the
And-
claw? You'll have to draw
and-
straws.
I just sort of look amongst the group and I just point at Lavellen.
But what?
He's going to carry one of you in his claws.
Oh.
To be fair, if Irina was there, she'd volunteer for that. But you know,
You are all
actually,
here. You're all together now. Like,
Carius would know
morning.
this and actually
Oh, wait,
like
you're
go
not-
to point at Lavellen.
no, I
and
snuck
go-
off.
would go to point at Lavellen and go, actually, that probably sounds like something Irina would relish. Probably
Are you
Irina.
sure?
Probably Irina. Yeah. Honestly, it would be a new experience. I mean, how many people get to be carried by a blue dragon? Well, obviously saying this quietly, so not everyone can overhear. Carried by someone such as Yuriun in that sort of method without being killed in the end.
Yeah.
It's quite an experience, but it's not recommended.
True, but we don't need to tell her
Yeah.
that.
Well, where is Irina, actually? He kind of looks around, and meanwhile, Irina, you snuck off. Make me a little stealth check, just because you are sneaking.
I'm not necessarily being like sneaky, but I want to go and see this griffin.
Okay. You kind of try to sneak up to the griffin. You do see it. It is...
Again, I'm not trying to be sneaky because that just looks shifty as heck.
All right. Well, if somehow you're looking shifty with a natural one, you don't want to be sneaky, but you're like looking side-eye and getting closer to it, looking at it down in the end of your nose. And as you approach the griffin, it definitely is aware of your presence. Lifts up its head, like tilts it to one side, and it starts to get up on all of its fours and flicks out its wings. You do see it's a white feathered griffin, and I'm gonna give you an art for it in just a second. But just as you're approaching, you hear Rakos, what's his name? Yeah, suddenly appear from behind you, and he says, "Can I help you?"
I just wanted to look. I've never seen one up close before.
Hmm.
I'm keeping a reasonable distance, by the way. I'm not just getting up in its face.
He
If it was
says,
an owlbear, it'd be another story, but...
"Yes, don't worry. These are much more tame than other creatures. We rear them from very young, from just a chick, in fact. So,
Even tame creatures can go berserk around strangers. I'm not that stupid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Does it have a name?
does. It is. Hold on. All right.
By the way, I hope you're not going to bring up any kind of alliance stuff now, are you, Chris?
No, what are you talking about?
Good.
His name is Gooba.
Goober.
Goober.
Gooba.
Goober.
Hmm.
That's fun to see in a Scottish accent. Goober.
Gooba.
Why?
Okay. Well, I named him that.
Yes, but why?
Sounded like a cute name. He was a chick at one point, a very tiny little featherless runt. So he kind of looked gooey without feathers, right?
All right. How old is he now?
Must be about coming up to 20 years of age. And where is the damn artwork I had? Gone. He says, "What business have you with this majestic creature, anyway? Learning
Nothing.
about riding one?"
I've never seen one up close. I just wanted to see it. When
Hmm.
you said that you had one, I knew one was in the area, and curiosity got the better of me.
There he is. As you can see, well, I'm just putting on his harness. You can help me. And he like asks you to like grab a hold of some of the reins and harnesses and basically a couple of bits of barding to protect his wrists, his underbelly, and even the beak as well, just so that it doesn't get cracked or hit when he's biting into stuff. But it also
I
acts
just
as
kind of
part
want
of
to
the
give him a pat and a scritch and things like that. So,
Yeah. Despite its menacing looking expression, it's kind of got this deep furrowed brow and it looks like it's almost frowning. But as soon as you like go to pet it, it does actually seem to warm up to you and it closes its eyes as if it's slightly enjoying it. The scritching.
Who's a good boy?
You even start to see the tail wagging slightly because, of course, something that
It's
normal,
literally
normal birds don't have as a way of representing joy is a tail, but this creature does. And it kind of wags back and forth, almost not like a dog, but like a cat, sort of just back and forth, waving.
He's
Huh.
amazing.
You'll see many like him up in the airs, defending Guardia, stalwart protectors.
I've only ever seen them airborne. I've never actually seen one on the ground. And usually my visits to Gadia have been quite brief, so never got to hang around for very long.
Our patrols are quite short, so he actually spends most of his time on the ground, underneath the shade, and you see he's actually been placed underneath one of the stables. The heat in the sun in Guardia is extremely hot,
Mm-hmm.
so we often do short patrols and then get them back to hydrate and rest, and then it's another battalion to sort of take to the skies.
Yeah, I didn't mean to invade. I just wanted to see. That he's amazing.
We're going to win the race, aren't you, boy? And he kind of gives him a pat, and he saddles up on top of him. Fancy going out for a test run? Test flight? And yeah, you just see the griffin sort of like begin to like let out a small screech. And he kind of rears up, almost getting excited. Alright, let's stretch out those
I will
wings.
get out of the way before he.
Yeah, you see kind of rear up and a load of feathers begin kind of wafting around. Not ones from here, but perhaps ones that it's preened when it was inside the stables. All of that, as well as a bunch of hay, kind of wafts up into the air as it begins to take flight. And it kind of does a little circle before it does so on the ground. Like its paws begin to like almost gallop and leap. And it leaves massive clawed tracks in the dirt before finally getting enough momentum to hoist its massive body into the air.
Once they're gone, I'm gonna go around and just collect a few different feathers, like different sizes and things like that, for like so I can put together like a little study in my journal, have different feathers.
Yeah, you pick up some white ones, you pick up some sort of golden tanned ones where the more lion body it's obviously fur, but there's portions where the feathers go into fur, and so the color of the feathers changes.
It's just so that obviously if I write down a study in my journal, then I can be like, this feather was from this part and it's designed because this reason, that sort of thing. And I'm just going to sort of hold them like a little bouquet and just come back into the inn and just kind of join everybody.
Yeah, you got some griffin feathers. All right. So, with other racers testing out their and practicing their little racing techniques, you see the basilisk is already charging across the desert, leaving another plume of sand behind it, as well as the giant toad leaps down from atop one of the buildings and then up to another one. And then what else? There was one more as well. Oh, that's right, the owlbear. That had still yet to be tamed. You can hear from amongst the other stables, you can hear there is this loud clattering and roaring sound coming from the back of the stables. And perhaps you see a small gnome get like shunted out of the stables and skids across the ground. It looks like he's a bit exhausted and he dusts himself off before kind of running back in there. And you're right, everyone's gathered. Lahiri is about to say her goodbyes. She says, "Well, I'm gonna head back now. If there's anything else you want me to deliver, like a message, I can do."
Ask Dad the name of his mentor.
Okay, sure. Well then, Julius didn't get into any more trouble, and everyone, if you're going into the Rattling Ruins, then Riley's blessing upon you. Make sure the undead don't spread their curse.
Yeah, it's one of the few times since he left that I really wish Castellius was here. Oh well. He's off. He's been useful in his own way.
Okay, take care, everyone. And you see her like
Uh,
putting her
bye
pack
now.
onto the back
Thanks
of
for
the
your
caravan.
help.
See you, and kind of gives a wave for everyone. You see her traveling back. I'm just gonna leave her here for now. with her
Right.
sisters.
She's gonna be all right going back by herself.
She's on the back of a caravan that you can see is heading back to. Yeah, there's like
She should be fine. She's travelled into much more dangerous parts of the desert before.
yeah.
Yes, but she also touched the shiny rocks that we told her not to touch before.
Yeah.
True,
Effectively, she's heading back on lots of empty wagons. Like you can see that there were supplies delivered here for the race, like foodstuffs and everything for potential spectators. But as she's heading back, it's kind of a lot of people have done business, already finishing their trade up, and they're heading back to the Rylea.
but right.
So do we want to do this whole like Volgarite thing then?
No, we're not going to do that immediately. I'm going to think on it some more. For now, we need to head to the Rattling Ruins. We potentially have time on the flight there, but Irina, who I assume is back by now.
Yeah, I'm sticking griffin feathers into my journal.
How would you feel about being carried by Uriun to the Rattling Ruins?
Okay. If it gets us there faster, sure.
Well, it was kind of it was a choice between you've got a choice between riding Uriun or being carried in his claws. And I felt like you would probably be the one who would most enjoy, for want of a better word, being carried in that way.
It would be a better view for sure.
Yeah, that was and a new experience. I mean, how many people get to be carried by someone like Uriun and get to live to tell the tales?
The
This
more
one
you
did,
say
and I
it,
point to Andy.
the less it sounds
Literally,
nice.
Andy got to ride Zaf.
That's true, but riding and being carried is different.
I guess. But sure.
Right. Okay, so we're going to head out into the desert, get a good distance away, and then fly.
Do we just want to take a short break?
I'm gonna find.
That seems like a good place to take
Like a
short
dragon.
break as we
I mean,
head
the
out
DM
to
has
the
gone
desert.
AWOL, so.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll be
I didn't
taking
know.
a 5-minute break. Join us then.
Apparently.
Stick around.
Flight break.
Go get some food, and we'll try not to die in the meantime. Okay? Be right back.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and we're back. So, the party are flying atop a adult blue dragon named Urayun all the way across towards the rattling ruins. Now, the first part of the journey, it is fairly easy, and flying above a dragon is quite the experience. You guys up above can see for miles around now. In the distance, there is Rylea Port. You can see Rashkar is becoming more and more of a tiny little dot of civilization in the midst of the desert. Far off to the west, you can see the small little tree line of the Ode Woods. And yeah, there's a all sort of air of mystery about it, seeing that there is an actual woods in the middle of a desert. But from where they are nestled in amongst two mountain ranges, it does make sense that they're out of the blistering heat. They're kind of shaded by both sides, almost like a small canyon. And if there was any rain, then that would likely trickle down the mountains and form into that gorge, almost creating a mini little ecosystem for the trees to grow. But the as you perhaps are wondering what's over there, if anyone wants to, they can make a perception check to see off in that direction, see if there is anything visible.
Sure, why not?
Bloody hell.
Yeah, no, I don't even see the point in rolling when you've got a felon in the party. But that's still a thing. I got a 12.
And
Wow.
also, Irina, you have advantage because you have a telescope or a spyglass.
Oh yeah, the spyglass.
Mm-hmm. There you go. That's much better. So first you're kind of squinting, then you realize, oh,
No, she's too excited about being carried, and she's just like, wee! And then she's like, oh, wait, I should probably, yeah.
yeah. And then you realize also you're holding it the wrong way around again. Always gets you. It's always a trick. And then you turn it around the right way, and then yeah, there we go. Okay. So, Arena, what you can see from down here as well is there is some sort of encampment or a settlement that is like nestled in the mountains far to the southwest. You've not really heard word of who lives down there, but at a guess, from the kind of crude nature that it's set up, like these wooden stakes.
Yeah, I was going to say, how well can I see the encampment? Can I figure out what kind of tribe or type of creature is dwelling there just by the way they've structured it?
Yeah, so you can tell there's kind of wooden stakes, tents, and there's little hovels as well. You can see like dug into the ground, and right at the back of the settlement, you can even see minecarts, and there's tunnels leading into the mountains themselves. Most of this though looks like really small, and then you kind of scan across towards this other settlement that you're just about spying over the ridge of the mountains, which is very obviously like animal hides and the settlements of the Knolls that you have seen already. The Knoll settlement seems to be visibly larger than this one, not in terms of just size, but in terms of like the buildings and the entranceways. This settlement down here is definitely made for smaller creatures, and you can perhaps just see tiny little dots of humanoid creatures walking around, but they seem to be going into the tunnels. Many of them like wheeling large.
See, my brain at first kind of thought, okay, mining dwarves, but dwarves are generally stone cutters rather than wood. So now my brain's like goblins.
Good guess. An educated guess. Anyways,
Irina smirked.
Also, you would see a very good bird's eye view of the sinking canyons from up here as well. You can see all the little patches of sand where antlions would possibly lay. As you're looking out as well to the Ode Woods, it is as I kind of described. It makes sense from a geological point of view. It is actually the only point in which there are trees. The rest of the desert, hardly nothing. But as you look around, you're not seeing anything like of a structure. No like cabin or cottage in the woods. Kind of, it's a bit of a head scratcher. If there is someone there, they must be a complete hermit. But then to hear something the size of grinding stones, maybe it is coming from the mountains, like Lahiri said. But as you look over there, you just see kind of different arranged mountain tops and their weird variety of shapes, but nothing really sticks out.
See, now I'm just thinking of like the Borzo and how obviously they could camouflage themselves and like they turn into the material that they hide as. So I have theories, but that's not what we're here for at the moment.
Right.
So I'm just
If
making
there is-
like a mental note.
Okay. If there was something camouflaged, it's very, very camouflaged.
Which is why I'm not dealing with it now.
Mm-hmm. And as for Andy, you're probably looking forward, northward, towards the destination at hand. And in the distance, the rattling ruins are indeed just that. You can see chunks of perhaps a great empire, not too different from, say, the dry oasis. There's just the telltale signs of similar architecture in places. But before even that, there is the Camel Hump Dunes, which obviously span pretty much the expanse of between Gadia and the Rattling Ruins, and indeed, even in between the Dry Oasis as well, to some extent. And this just gives an uneasy feeling. What overlooking it, it is not just the usual desert. Some of the sands almost look like they're still stained red from the blood of past battles, past wars. It's odd to see that they would still be stained that way, but maybe it's just a trick of the light. Maybe it's just the red hue of the rising sun. But in amongst it, you do see kind of like little flecks of white here and there, small bones that have maybe somehow made it to the surface. And also the smell is something. With a 23, you can definitely tell where the Camel Hump Dunes gets its other name. It's more of its slang name, which is the Camel Dump Coons, which is of course because it smells like rot. It smells like a fetid, pungent smell, as if something has been buried beneath the sands. Yeah, Camel Dump. Yeah, Camel Dump Coons. It smells like something has been dead and lying in the sun, baking for days, and it is an awful stench.
She's probably never seen it from up high before. Of course, she's probably passed them and probably smelt them before, especially if the wind is blowing in the right direction. You could probably smell it at the dry oasis, I would imagine. But yeah, she's probably never seen it from this angle, so she's probably never seen the blood that's potentially still there. And yeah, it kind of just gives it an even more grim outlook.
In addition to that, because you rolled really, really high, there are some things that are a bit of a marvel that you hadn't yet noticed before, or even, you perhaps heard legends though, or overheard like tavern songs kind of singing of the great battles. And one of them spoke of giants like that fought for the war itself. You're not sure whether they were giant creatures or actual the type of giants like storm giants or fire giants. But either way, people came to this conclusion because of the rumors that giant weapons had been seen in the sand, still stuck there, discarded artifacts of a war long
This
since.
this would have been Irina and Labellen in the inn last night because of the medal.
Right, yeah, that's true. What you spot just barely in the sand is a glint of something metallic, massive. And from a bird's eye view, it's a little bit hard to tell what the size and shape of it is, but there is a glint, like a metal shard, jutting out from the sand. And yeah, just as you pass over it, it does catch your eye before kind of the angle of the sun doesn't bounce into your eye anymore. But for a briefest moment with the 23, you could have swore it looked like the top of a sword, maybe the hilt and cross guard of something like dug into the sand. But,
Okay.
and then finally
You
Llewellyn
should
with a
only
damn 29.
think so. Skydive! Ooh, shiny, down I go. Yeah, no, she's not that silly.
But like,
Feather fall you down.
the rumors might be true. There are still treasures and armaments left. And with Llewellyn with a 29, the shapes of the mountains intrigue you. They're all so unique, each one shaped perhaps by a different storm that has passed over the mountaintops. Amongst them, there is one that is incredibly well camouflaged. In fact, it looks like it's still shimmering, moving, perhaps, in the desert heat. And you start to realize where the name comes from with the Mirage Mountains. There is this shimmering state. It looks like the tops of the mountains shift and contort into different shapes. And you start to see things on them. Perhaps altars, perhaps structures. And at one point, when the haze is just right, it looks like it's a perfectly symmetrical built tower in amongst the mountains. But it still has the same texture and color as the mountains. But for just a briefest of moments, over here,
Do you
I don't know
guys,
if anyone actually sees it.
do you guys see that? Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm underneath the dragon. I'm like, see what?
Yeah.
What?
Just the tower over there. Do you guys not see that?
I can't see where he's
Uh,
pointing.
No, you can't. No,
All I see is dragon.
that's true.
Yeah. Carius looks over in that direction.
You see mountains, lots of different types of mountains, but none that look like a tower. You see one that perhaps looks like a horse at one point, but then it sort of shifts and changes. And no, it was just a trick of the mirage.
Yeah, I think we are going over the Mirage Mountains. You're probably just seeing something, Llewellyn.
No, seriously.
I just see mountains, Llewellyn. Mountains.
There's a tower over there.
They do that to you. They make you see things.
Yep.
It's
Honestly,
a towering mountain.
No,
Yeah. I mean, I don't even suffer from mirages that much, but I remember once seeing a giant mango in the middle of the desert, and I was obsessed with getting it, and it just turned out to be a big rock.
And just as they're saying this and convincing you you're just seeing things, the tower actually does shift, and you see the top half of it begin to rotate around, and it's symmetrical on every single side. In fact, the best description is like something like this, just slowly turning.
but
And as it
And then
turns
it
around,
turns into a giant mango.
mirages don't usually change. It's usually just you see an image, right?
well,
but
as it turns
I-
around, it looks like a mountainside on the other side.
It's actually turning. What?
It's
Actually, that is a very good question because I've never suffered mirages. Do mirages move? Is
yeah,
that
they
a thing?
do, yeah.
Like I can imagine they sort of like, but
They
usually,
do. They sort of shimmer and then they kind of melt as the closer you get to them.
but they don't usually rotate, right?
I mean, I wouldn't
Depend-
put it past it to happen.
It depends on what your brain does, really.
Really?
Carius comes up and places a hand on Llewellyn's forehead to see if he's overheating.
No,
He is very hot up here.
Carius just sort of thinks for a moment and then goes and pulls out his water skin and says, "Drink something. You're overheating."
did you just basically tell me I'm drunk? Go home.
Maybe. I was honestly trying to go for the Snickers, get some nuts effort, because you're not you when you're hungry. You're not you when you're overheated, I guess.
No, that's seriously something over there. We need to go there at some point. I'm telling you.
Right.
Yes, of course. We will make
Yeah.
sure to add it on our list.
Push Kashan
Yes,
off the dragon.
Carius pulls out pretends to pull out an invisible bit of paper and goes to write. Right, so we'll do that. So after the Clawed Coast, we've got the Crystal Caves. That's on the list.
I'm going
Saving
to
Capital.
I'm going to major image what the tower looks like exactly in front of them. Like, you guys, seriously.
He has a vivid imagination.
Obviously, it's
I will waste a spell if I have to.
just don't worry about it. It happens. It happens to everyone. You're just seeing things.
It's in pretty much the exact direction where
Llewellyn,
Right.
you're overthinking things and over worrying about it. It's an illusion. We have more important things right now.
you're an illusion.
She slaps him.
Roll a dexterity save, Llewellyn.
No one ever believes me.
And there's Irina just in this claw, literally, probably journal out and literally mapping as she kind of goes.
I won't dodge a
Llewellyn
slap.
falls off the dragon and falls down to his death bullet.
Carius catches it.
Feather fall.
No, she's just like, look, listen to the people who live in the desert. Don't worry about it. If it's important, we can come back later, but it's not important right now.
I'm just saying, clearly, Carius' father had a magical mentor. It wouldn't be out of the realms for it to be over in that direction.
Which is fine, but we will worry about it later. Let's just carry on.
Yeah. For now,
We are on a time limit.
Carius, my wayward dragon.
I mean, we're not stopping at any point.
No, you're not. In fact, Urian doesn't seem to be paying attention to all this little sightseeing. He sees it daily, perhaps. And
And
he
I
says,
expect an apology for the I'm an illusion.
Really?
Yes, because that was rude. That was very rude. You hurt my feelings.
I'm sorry. But you were all calling me crazy.
We
No,
weren't
we
calling
were
you
saying-
crazy.
Saying I was seeing things.
I've
Yeah.
seen things in the desert. I
Right.
see my father all the time in the desert. But I
But
know it's not real.
I usually see a lot of things, and they usually are real.
She just goes and sits on the other side of the dragon because she's like, I'm fed up now.
I
Not
just,
listening.
I lean over to Level and just say, "Don't worry, the wind talks to me."
I honestly would not put it past the realms of
he's not
possibility.
wrong, you know.
Ah, there we
You
go.
hear
again.
You actually, that was your book, Llewellyn? But it's odd. It's almost as if he was hearing what Kashan was saying. And of course, applying to it.
Oh.
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 It seems like you're starting to learn a thing or two. But your mortal minds would snap if you tried to comprehend the full picture.
Do I need to stick Carius in the book? Kashan in the book. Is that how I'll learn it?
Well, that could be what we do with Kashan if he dies.
I mean, the way he's been going recently, I'll do it. No, I'm kidding.
You can swiftly go and yuck yourself.
As they're flying, has no, that doesn't make sense. I'm just trying to think. Velen, what do you know about lightning? Besides the obvious that I can shoot lightning and you can shoot lightning and lightning comes from the sky and from dragons.
I know that it is energy and how it can be applied to do many things. I've seen it being used to bring the dead back to life.
Okay, that's a new one, but that actually kind of makes sense. I think that might be how some, that makes sense. That's
and
actually
make-
probably how Tempest clerics actually do like revivify. It's like starting up the heart again, the lightning bolt.
And maybe
That is
if
my new
you
talent.
and maybe you, a living being, manage to harness the lightning, it could do much more to a living person than a dead person.
Have you ever heard lightning talk? Or heard anything like that?
No, but apparently Kashan can hear lightning
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, he was translating for me last night whilst I was trying to work this out.
I have heard the lack of lightning talk. You hear that?
Wait, what?
Oh, nothing. Nothing.
Is he basically insulting me with that because I'm not producing the lightning in this case? I don't even hear it, but Kara's just for a moment just pausing like, why do I feel offended all of a sudden?
Ears are burning.
I'm kind of curious if I can hear Llewellyn's book.
Roll a perception check.
No, but isn't this in my mind?
Yeah.
But it's still a language and it's still technically a creature.
He can hear telepathy.
Oh.
He
Ooh.
can't hear telepathy.
Not quite. No.
No.
You hear maybe like a rustling of his cape, which is where this book is obviously positioned, but maybe that's just the wind billowing on the top of the dragon. So
It's just the wind being like, I can see your underpants.
yeah. Okay.
Karis basically just goes, I'm just trying to get a more thorough understanding of lightning, but I feel like there's a piece I'm missing, information I don't know.
Like, it can be used to create energy. You can ramp up energy through the means of coils, and it being shot back and forth through coils, and also produce heat in doing so.
The idea of it producing is an interesting concept. It is energy. It is an energy that is produced. That's all I can say.
I mean,
Okay.
if you manage to coil something around your arm and shot it through that, would you be able to ramp up the lightning to make it more powerful that way?
I mean, maybe, but you
Maybe
did just give me
focus that,
a weird idea.
maybe like a
Managed-
focus that is like a bracelet coil.
You managed to use heat to turn it into lightning. Or lightning became heat, heat can become lightning. Karis is going to try to do one last weird thing as they're flying.
All right.
He's going to try to cast the transmutation spell Gust through the Fulgurite. Because
Okay.
essentially lightning is superheated air where the iron's
Correct.
destruct. I'm trying
Yeah.
to do sort of that, and it's transmutation, which is clearly
Yeah.
the right sort of magic.
Yeah. The gust takes to it immediately. You've only been using this exclusively to channel lightning. But this is the first moment when you feel air funnels in almost of its own accord. It kind of turns into a wind tunnel down there, like whirling and spiraling, and shooting out the other end. And you didn't even have to think about it. It felt natural. It felt like an extension of lightning. Or rather, lightning maybe is an extension of air. However, you also are keenly aware that there is still something missing.
Yeah,
There's a piece of this puzzle.
yeah. That was the last experiment Karis has in his head for the time being, but
Okay.
it would make sense to be doing it now whilst they're flying, just like,
Absolutely, yeah. But
you know.
at least you've understood that air as well as lightning can be used in this fashion for a spellcasting focus. So, as you guys begin to approach, Urian finally speaks up and says, please raise your trade tables into the upright position and buckle in. There is a bit of turbulence up ahead. And that
That was-
smell, by the way, is awful. That wasn't one of you, was it?
No, I don't think it wasn't me at least.
I mean, you've traveled through this desert several times. Surely you should know this smell by now.
Oh,
But
absolutely. But that's
they do
something else.
say that ye who smelt it dealt it.
Plus, your back end is massive right now.
Whoever said the rhyme did the crime.
There's probably a huge smell coming from your back end.
I can eject you from this.
And
Like
I,
any
Actually, he said there's a smell, but was he saying it's not like the normal smell?
smells more like poison than it does the usual rot. Smells like the air is sick. And up ahead, you start to see, without need of everyone's perception check, there is a swirling in the ruins. It looks like it's like almost like a chimney of billowing dust starts emanating from it. You can't tell the exact source. It's just rising. Perhaps it's rising from multiple places and swirling together and amassing, but rather than the usual stench, it does almost sting a little bit. The nostrils are kind of assaulted by this stabbing sensation.
But it's
And,
not like burning smoke, because I'd recognize that kind
no,
of.
not burning smoke at all. If anything, in fact, some of you are probably akin to having felt this before, especially Llewellyn. It's almost more like necrotic. I'd like you to roll an Arcana check if you're proficient with it.
oh, I'm fine with necrotic. Necrotic is my
Sure.
shit.
Nope.
Not everyone is.
Is that proficient with Arcana or?
Yeah, if you're proficient with Arcana. Okay, both of you would see this and immediately think to yourself, that's like a spell you've seen before. A poisonous air, the way he described it, except it's not the same color as what it normally is. It's kind of like the color of sand and more like a reddy sand, like blood sand. But the same, it smells the same, like that caustic, poisonous air. It sounds like a cloud kill spell. And we're not talking just a 20-foot radius. We're talking about something that envelops the entire of the ruins, and it is rising up into the air. And he says, either we're going to have to fly around it, fly straight through it, or we're going to need to descend.
Or I attempt to blow it away.
That's a possibility.
Well, we probably need to descend anyway.
We are kind of at the destination.
Yep.
All right, I'm heading down. Hold your breath just in case. And the wings begin to pull together slightly and forms into more of a hang glider. And he circles around. He's not getting closer towards it. He's trying to bring you down where it seems safe. And eventually you come down to the bottom. It's a smoother landing than what normal dragons take, just so that you guys aren't jostled off of it. And you come to the scorching hot sands, just as hot as it is down here. Right, this is safe as I feel comfortable getting you guys. I wonder what suddenly spurred it to erupt like that.
Well, there's meant to be spirits and stuff in there. They're probably trying to defend themselves. Would be my guess. And as we approach, basically a blue dragon and a group of quite well-versed adventurers, probably enough to trigger anyone who's paying attention.
Well, I mean, it also could have been set like a command into an object or something for if trespassers came nearby or got too close, and it just triggers that way. Sometimes that can happen.
I forget about those sometimes.
Whenabouts did it trigger? Did it trigger like when we reached a certain point?
Yeah, you were just passing. You were just passing like the first kind of flagstones of what you'd imagine the outskirts of the city might have been.
Okay. I'm gonna mark that on my little doodle map that I've been kind of quickly sketching.
Does
Sure.
this seem like going near the runes could be quite dangerous in itself, not because of enemies and stuff?
Well, if it was a natural effect that was ever present, then you would have seen it as you were coming towards it. But it seemed like it was at a certain point, it suddenly rose up.
Place is booby trapped.
And you were in the air as well, of all places. And you didn't see any more travelers either when you were approaching with your perception checks. Still kind of bits of white bone jutting out from the ground, but now that this has rose up, it's very hard to see anything there. In fact, you do a bit of artwork for this.
It could be something that we could dispel, and I have a means of going in there without taking any, well, having any issue. But it's an item that requires attunement, and it would only work on one person.
I mean, you said that we know that it's the cloud kill spell, right?
It seems similar to that effect, yeah.
Okay, so would we know like roughly how long that's supposed to last? We can guess because of the size of it, it's probably going to last longer, but like a general.
Yeah, generally it lasts about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a brief spell. It's intended to, trap and slowly kill things off.
Right. Well, I just sort of looked at the others. Not a spell I've ran into before. Is this something that can be blown away?
I mean, it's
Give it a try.
gas, so in theory, yes. But there's a lot of it.
Yeah, well,
You don't really want to blow it in a direction where, like, there might be a settlement potentially.
Yeah, there's that.
Can you make it go up, higher?
Yeah,
maybe
that I can do. I can blow it up. Not in the way that you blow things up, like literally blow up. And I can do that for 100-foot cube worth of it, so that's a fairly sizable chunk. But that's probably our best bet, unless anyone else has any ideas.
Like I said, if we want to go in and disable it, but someone would have to attune to this necklace I have, who can disarm it or dispel it, or
I can only get rid of curses. I can't dispel magic.
Oh. I would have to attune to it then.
What necklace do you want about?
The necklace of adaptation.
Ah, so you can breathe in.
Yeah, you can breathe in any sort of.
Well, I'm resistant to poison, so already.
Can you dispel magic?
Whatever gave you that idea.
Oh.
But I was planning to get close and try to blow it away as best I can.
Yeah.
That necklace is like it, it literally says, while wearing this necklace, you can breathe normally in any environment. You have advantage on saving throws against harmful gases and vapors, such as cloud kill, stinking cloud, inhaled poisons, and even the breath weapons of some dragons.
Yeah.
Now, I have advantage against poison anyway, so I have the same sort of resistance that you would have with that.
So
Sure.
we could both go in, and I'd have a bodyguard.
Yeah.
So I would go about attuning to that then.
Take a moment outside the ruins to attune if you want.
Don't you already have 3 attunement items, though?
Yeah, I'd have to swap out my staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you on this case, but that... Does the de-attunement process also take an hour?
No. You want to attune to another item, it just makes the other one not attuned.
Okay, so if we want to wait an hour, we can.
It makes sense if you're going into
Yeah.
a deadly gas-filled ruin.
Yeah. Okay then.
You've attuned to it before, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah. So the process is.
I'm
Okay.
also just going to look at Kashan, who is immune to poison.
I was just
Oh,
going to
yeah.
say, isn't Kashan also immune to poison?
I got bodyguards to
The
dispel
air is
this.
thin up here.
Not affected. He looks at you.
No, it's not
Strange.
that bad actually.
He's created much worse stenches. He's used to it.
Yeah, you should smell him on bath night.
He really doesn't like to get in the bath.
Yeah,
I
and
love
after
my
he's
bath,
got
thank you very much.
And after he's got out of the bath, you know why. Right, well, that just leaves. I mean, we can move ahead and try to do that with Irina and Andy following up the rear, I guess, unless you've got some ways to deal with it.
I do not. I mean, I could turn into a cloud myself, but that could pose problems if you tried to
And then
blow the cloud
Yeah,
away.
I could blow you away.
Team rockets blasting off in the air.
And Andy, I'm guessing you don't have a way to deal with it.
No.
So it's probably safer if we keep our distance until it's safe, and then we can join you.
You see that Uriun begins to beat his wings and uses his wing attack, causing a massive gust of wind to sort of billow some of it back. And he's just watching how the kind of air swirls. It creates a pocket, but it does slowly fill in again.
Of course it does.
Well, that costs 2 legendary actions, so I could do it every round.
Yeah,
It might be enough
fine.
to protect some of it.
Yeah. Okay, so Uriun, if you can protect Irina and Andy with it, the three of us will head ahead and try to make it safer. And then hopefully that's... Assuming you're okay with doing that, I don't want to just make assumptions.
We can try to stay close behind, but depends how thick it gets in there. If you want to scout ahead, we can wait.
Right.
It's up to you as a group.
Right, Lavelle and Kashan, let's get moving. I guess once Lavellin's attuned.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to cast. Actually, based on the positioning where this is, the dry oasis is about here. There's currently a picture over the top, so I can't tell.
Yeah.
Gauges there. So if I was to blow it in this direction,
Mm-hmm.
that wouldn't be going towards any settlements or anything Karis is aware of.
Not that you're aware of, but I'll move the map
Yeah.
just so you can see.
Okay, so if I was to go this way.
Yeah, that would go into just open desert.
Okay, so I'm going to poison the desert. That's fine with me. There's lots of poisonous creatures that I'm sure they're used to it.
Okay.
Right, so Karis is going to cast Control Winds
Mm-hmm.
with the gust effect and basically make it into a strong wind, blowing the poisonous gas away from them into basically the west, I think would be, assuming that the top of the map is north.
And that encompasses a 100-foot area. Cube, yeah. That's big enough to fit you, the dragon, and everyone inside of it.
Yeah, so if everyone wants to join us, they can. I'm basically blowing the poison out of a 100-foot cube. It's like, go away, poison. Piss off.
Yeah. And if the spell is disrupted, you've at least perhaps got Uriun to try to beat it away as well, but
yeah,
that will exhaust it.
And this lasts an hour, so...
Lasts an hour, that's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, it was a spell I took purely for thematics, but it has become such a useful spell. I mean,
it looks safe enough to me.
Yeah.
You've got quite the handle on that. I think we'll be safe enough. As long as you don't get As long as you don't lose your concentration, correct?
Pretty much. So I'm counting on all of you to take any arrows aimed for me or spells. Otherwise, we're all going to get poisoned. Actually, that's a question. Can you actually get poisoned, Urian? I'm not sure on if blue dragons have immunities to that.
Why? You're planning on using some sort of chemical weapon in the war?
No, I was just curious
Yes.
if this suddenly stopped, would you be at risk as well? Because I don't want to put you into a risk that you don't have to take, you know.
That I would, yes. We are not immortal beings, believe it or not.
Yeah,
Though some would
that's
have you think that. They live very long.
that is fair. I just wasn't sure whether maybe due to age or anything, if like magic inside you, if you develop like natural resistances to it or anything.
Not our kind. Not blue dragons.
So that's just what greens.
He nods. Those
I
tricksy
feel like
green.
I feel like there might be another one, but green is the only one coming to mind.
We
Because
believe it. Some of us were even mistaken to be green. Some rumors spread that we were the green dragons were causing illusions in the mountain. That's a specifically strictly green dragon thing. I can show you. We do not specialize in any types of illusion or trickery.
I mean, in some lights, you do look a bit turquoisey.
Don't insult my scales.
I'm
Thank you very much.
I'm kidding.
They're an immaculate sapphire. And that same sapphire will be the one to woo the Baroness.
Now, I suppose as we're walking, that is an interesting question. Are there any blue dragons that sort of have like a greenish tint to them? Like maybe it's like blue on the nearer end to the green.
Like an offspring of green.
Not even necessarily an offspring, but
I shudder to think of the thought. No, no, I doubt it. I shudder to think of it as well.
Imagine the breath that would come out of that, like a cold poison.
Sounds like an abomination.
A lightning.
or I suppose no. I as you said, that'd be an abomination. Trying to consider what would happen if like. I mean, I suppose purple if you mixed a blue and red, but that wouldn't happen. Ugh, horrible thought in itself. But
Exactly. Do you know what happens to half-breeds?
to be honest, no, my knowledge of dragons is unfortunately not as good as it should be. I'm trying to study and learn more, but I haven't quite got to grips with it yet.
Half.
Any crossbreeds between two different colors are seen as an abomination. They're immediately cold before they grow even too young.
Huh.
Is it a similar case when it comes down to half dragons as well, or is it just half?
Half dragon, specifically.
But who would call them?
Once any of the other dragons found out. Cool.
So just anyone, any dragon in general, just specific.
I know they're talking about dragons, but Irina, as a half elf, is not happy about this conversation.
Yeah, it's a little bit shit.
So, whilst this is just purely like philosophical or hypothetical point, if I know you've got your eyes set on the Baroness, can't think of her name.
Lemekra.
But say like everything like was the same, but she was a different color. Would that put you off entirely, or would you like allow love to overcome that?
That's an interesting question. I hadn't thought of that myself.
But then your children would get cold.
Precisely.
Would
That is
that
a difficult decision to make.
wouldn't be enjoyable, would it?
But I mean, your children would get cold providing they found out. I mean, you would have the option to hide them or leave and start your own life somewhere. So I'm just curious as to like,
Possible.
Well, I'm a bit of a renegade as in terms of my own kin, and I believe that love would trump that sort of decision, that law that they put in place.
So it's possible there could be hybrid dragons out there.
It is possible, but hiding them would be no small feat. Dragons need to fly. Keeping them underground or hidden would be like they're not living at all.
Hmm.
And for one to reach adulthood would take not just a well hidden lair, but also years and years
But
for them to reach adulthood.
there are some dragons that stay hidden underground, right?
There are, namely black dragons, they hide under the swamps.
So
Red dragons, they can hide within their volcanic mountain.
so it's possible to hide.
Why are we?
Just an interesting concept.
we
Yeah.
just like with would Llewellyn have ever disclosed about? Because I know he's like tell us a story about the red and black that he fixed.
What red and black?
Well, that's what the dragon we fought in Kester was. It was.
I thought that's what we were all hinting at the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
that was a
it
red
was-
and black
it-
hybrid.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I thought
The
it was.
two, literally the two he just mentioned, potentially black and red.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Ralphus was just that. He was the bastard son of Cavalanoth the Lustful.
Who was
Yeah.
the red?
No, Cavalanoth is black.
I remember
Oh,
you
weird.
described
I would
it
have
as
imagined
a
red
black
being
dragon
more-
with ripped off scales.
The red was the female,
Yeah.
and she was the one who tried to hide him.
Yeah, but there was like a big like story bit about it, but
Mhm.
so maybe Llewellyn's just forgot those details, I guess, over time.
I just remember Chris describing it as a black dragon with scales ripped off and rotted.
Yeah,
to
but,
some
like
extent.
beneath them, like,
More like the opposite. They were born with red, but then there was acid that spilled out from the scales,
Yeah,
basically,
Yeah.
turning them black.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I remember. But
So
interesting.
I'm just purely from from the hypothetical standpoint, whilst we're heading into the ruins. If you were to essentially try to crossbreed two dragons, I know it's an abomination, but I'm just curious. Which two do you think would end up being ending up with like the strongest offspring?
Would definitely have to be blue, and then he pauses, and not green,
I would have
Definitely
thought
not
black
black.
and white. It's,
white.
Gold.
Black and white are
You roll-
literally the polar opposites of each other.
Whites are savage, brutal, more like animals than they are dragons, and the blacks are cruel. They
I thought whites were meant to be good, aren't they?
no,
No, whites are another chromatic. They're evil as well.
they're all of the chromatics are evil.
Oh no,
all
I'm
of
thinking gold. I'm thinking gold.
Yeah,
all
that's
of the
what.
metallic are good.
Yeah.
All of the chromatic are evil, technically speaking. But blues are they're lawful evil.
Yeah,
say,
and I
if
think
you had-
there's some that I think like the iron dragons. I think hover on the border like neutral more
Mhm.
than anything. But
That's what I'm
Of course,
saying.
there are exceptions, and you saw like Zaf didn't want to fight, didn't want a war. They were trying to find a peaceful solution. So there is that.
If you had like a gold and a blue mixed together, a balance between the good and evil, probably be powerful as fuck.
So he says blue, but then he kind of pauses, and again he starts to think like, I wouldn't. None of the other dragons are even desirable.
mm, I mean, in my head, because obviously lightning is by far the best element, but and I realize there's Oh,
Yeah, actually,
is
come to think of it, the most complimentary would be fire.
so, I mean, a blue and a red end up with a purple. The
Mm-hmm.
color would. I imagine that if you got like the right shade of red and the right shade of blue, you can make an absolutely stunningly beautiful color.
Gent.
Yes, blue and red, I would have to say. Though reds are tyrannical. We are obsessed with treasure.
Yeah,
It moves.
it's interesting as a concept. Though,
Yeah.
as Lavellan said, a blue and a gold could be pretty interesting. I realize that's even further going between
Chromatic and metallic. You're blowing my mind here.
Yeah, I'm just opening your mind to new experiences. You know, just who knows?
A chromatalic.
I'm not the Kavalanoff, the last one sounds like something he would try.
Yeah,
He's forgotten into legend. Haven't seen him in nearly 300 years.
Sounds
Oh,
awesome. You know?
what? What was that, Lavella?
Nothing.
Though now I'm just imagining like someone with like your beautiful color of blue with little gold flecks in it. That would be nice. Like, 'cause I'd imagine the blue would be the dominant gene, so you just have a little hint of gold.
Be like the alcohol that you get little gold specks in.
Yeah.
Goldschlager.
Yeah.
I like how we-
Dragons.
We're just walking into the rattling ruin, poison around us, Carrie's casually manipulating the wind and just being like, so what's happening? This happened.
Would Rauhis have said anything in all this in terms of in the book? In this discussion?
Oh God, yeah, I forgot.
The
Literally talking about me. I'm right here. Um, yeah, absolutely, they would say something like that. It's as you described. My mother hid me in the mountain beneath the lava-filled tunnel. There I grew, and there I endured the most painful existence. The growing pain, my ribs pushing themselves through the skin, through the scales. Many a night I puked myself to sleep, acid spewing from my jaws instead of fire.
I say out loud as we're having this discussion of dragons, like, on second thought, maybe a hybrid wouldn't be too good.
So,
And then
One of the most painful processes once they reach, like a young state, is when the manifestations of both start to rend and tear into his body. It's like it's a tug of war between fire and acid in his body, and you can imagine what you do if you opposite elements as well.
so Kavalanoff was the mother, right?
No,
No,
Kavalanoff
far.
was the father.
So who was the mother then? I speak through the book.
I'll have to really dig through my notes.
I'm sorry, Chris.
what was
I don't know how this all came up.
was the honestly, I think we were just discussing green dragons and like whether blue and green, blah blah blah, and it just sort of went into it. Was one of the reasons based on, and I suppose that would explain this, that it was so painful because like red dragons are naturally like one of the biggest of the dragons, whereas black dragons are known to be a lot more slender. So obviously, if like part of his body is trying to grow faster than the other due to the weird mix.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't just that; it was also the fire breathing and acid glands were like basically in competition, and he would just
Yeah.
like be spewing up acid in unintentionally.
Yeah. Well, this has been an interesting conversation. Does anyone see or hear anything as we're getting into these ruins now?
Okay, so it's almost completely submerged in this swirling gas, which you're keeping just at bay. So if anything, what you're seeing is much like the image I've posted there earlier. You're just seeing this kind of swirl of death around you. All the plants, all the living creatures must have long died here. You don't see a single like shrub or even bit of sprout from the earth. No grass, no nothing. It's just ruins and sand. But you do feel like you're coming upon perhaps the main thoroughfare of what was once a city. You can see the foundations of buildings. You can see the markings of houses and streets. You can even see tiles at this point underneath your feet. Most of it is submerged beneath sand, but occasionally there's a nice, like 20-foot area of tiles that reach a set of stairs that descend into what must have been like a center, town center. So drag you onto a map. Oh god. There we go. All the while you're keeping up this spell for like at least a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And also gonna add in light. No.
Just to let you know, Twitch is having external outages, so I've just hit the record button in OBS, see if that's okay.
It's still going now. I'm on it.
It still seems to be going at the moment.
Yeah.
Good.
Alright. That's no, it does change. Oh god, there it is. Oh, the fog. So yeah, you're creeping around these entranceways. A lot of it is obscured. Even inside the buildings, the actual gas is prevalent, almost as if it's come out of the ruins themselves. There's no shelter from it. There's no protection except for the one that you're providing here. And it's dense. It's so dense you can hardly see like 10 or 20 foot in front of you. But your wind is pushing it back every time it tries to encroach around you. The smell is horrid. It's rancid, but it's also like acrid as well. A chemical that's trying to seep into your lungs.
Okay. 10 was the name of the rider, right? And Nash
Yes, it was.
and Carrot is just going to call out 10. If this is you causing this poison, we're just here to talk. We're not here to harm you or do any fighting unless we really have to. So if you're willing to drop this for a little bit, then we can talk.
You can all roll me a perception check as Carius shouts this into the streets beyond.
Not amazing, but not bad.
Carrot is too busy focused.
Hey.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Here and see
Oh, I think I just rolled as Andy.
You did.
Oh.
You rolled as a fellow.
Possibly.
I was going to say, Kshan has a plus 13 on perception. Just going to quickly roll that again.
But
no,
you did roll
Andy rolled as herself.
No, Llewellyn. Kasham rolled as Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why.
How did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why there's 2 dice rolls for Llewellyn.
I'll take the
You got a
32.
19 on the dice.
Okay. So.
It would have been a 26 using Kashan's bonuses on the 19.
All right, then. So a lot of you doesn't take much to listen in after this replies. After the statement has been said, you can hear the cracking of something nearby. Maybe it was stone, maybe it was bone. the split second afterwards, you can hear it moving around. It shifts from behind one building to another, kind of popping sound as well as a rattling sound. You start to realize where perhaps this ruins gets its name from.
I'm going to try and send a message in that sort of direction. I hope so. Just getting someone, something,
Yep.
hopefully 10, and just basically say the same thing that Carius did. But like without the last part where it's like, we'll fight you if we have to. Is that a little bit?
It's 120 feet, right?
I believe so. It's either 120 or 90. 120 feet.
Okay. All right then. And what do you say? The same thing, but without the last.
Yeah, without the last part, which came across a little bit threatening.
Okay. You are pointing it in a random direction, trying to pick out a voice or a name or anything. The only thing you hear back is this kind of howling sound in your mind.
Oh,
It's kind of almost like a ghostly howl, like a wind blowing. There's definitely some sort of voice within that as well, some sort of tormented soul or spirit, perhaps.
oh. Only I do what Shan could do. It tried to respond, but I don't understand whooshing noises like Kashan does. I say out loud to the group.
Wait, whooshing noises as in like
Does it sound like
wind?
Auron?
Does
Yeah.
it sound like Horan? Or does it just sound like ghost whooshing?
Yeah, it didn't sound like a language at all. In fact, it sounded more like just a tormented howl.
Yeah, like that. I say it as
Skelly
Irene
bobs.
does it.
I'll listen out if I hear any voices.
They rattle. Skelly bobs.
But we should definitely be on the lookout because there are things around here. And I just happened to contact one. Or it.
Well, I went first last time, so it's your guys' turn.
Did you? Last time what?
When I fell into the sinkhole with the snakes,
Oh, yeah.
and then the other sinkholes afterwards.
Yeah, that was funny.
On you go, Llewellyn.
Well, I need to stay around Carius.
Yeah, if anything, you'll need to move together.
Yeah, let's just move as a group. If you're scared, Kashan, I'll lead the way.
You guys are no fun.
Clearly. He's clearly scared.
I mean, technically, Kashan is the perfect person to scout because he doesn't get affected by the poison at all.
I know.
I'll climb up the walls here and just scale
Okay,
it,
sure.
see if I can get a height advantage.
What is that I see in the distance? There's walls in the way.
Parkour!
There are some walls, but you would see something
Oh,
like a figure. You see perhaps like a figure in the obscuring fog and smog. It looked humanoid and it was running, and then it disperses back in and hides behind another a nearby building. And the same thing for you, Kashan. You see these heads leaning around the entranceways, and then they kind of pull back. And with a 23 handling, you would definitely hear the sound of strings, a familiar sound to you, being pulled.
Being what?
Pulled.
Like plucked.
Pulled. Oh.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Like a bow.
Is it making a tune or is it just
No, it's
making
like a
noise?
bow and arrow bow.
Oh, bow
Yeah,
and
it's a
arrow.
string, and it's weird they use so much terminology between violins. You got the bow, you got the string. Yes, it definitely sounded like a bow string being pulled back.
You mean like a bow is in a weapon bow, not a bow is in a violin bow? Sorry, I'm getting very tired at this point, so I need to try and make sure
It's
I know
not
which one.
one of these.
It's funny they, yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, you're exactly right. They are definitely bows being pulled, taut.
Guys, just show that you haven't got weapons in your hands. Hold your hands up.
Okay.
Carius does, and the wind shifts subtly.
They've got arrows trained on us.
But I'm
Good.
currently
Do I need
using
to-
my bow staff to balance. Just hold my arms up.
I only hold one hand up because I don't have enough.
Your other hand is the hook, right?
Yeah.
You can
He's
still
got a
hold
hook.
it up.
Take him down. Okay, everyone who's approaching and trying to make out they're not a threat can roll me just a persuasion check. This is kind of a group roll.
Yeah, dice.
I was gonna say because Kashan's more on alert, if I'm honest. And it's hard to not look threatening being a catman on top of a wall with a bow staff in hand.
Yeah.
Tail flicking about. So he's trying to balance on this wall.
Totally
Okay.
threatening.
Pretty much everyone passed except Kishan. And Kishan, you suddenly see a skeletal figure emerge from behind a rock and fires an arrow that arcs around and straight towards you.
Perfect.
I mean, it's a disadvantage because of the wind. It's a disadvantage because of his cloak. It's at disadvantage.
Okay, alright, it's a disadvantage. I will roll away.
Double
Single
disadvantage.
shot.
And I am going to point out the time.
Yeah.
Fine. We won't,
Can
we
I
won't
just get
enter.
this one thing in?
Okay. It comes towards you. I don't think it's going to hit you though. Not with your 50. Oh wait, 15. So you go.
15. 15 is my AC.
Disadvantage. Oh,
Okay, all right. So an arrow does
Okay.
come flying towards you.
Deflect
Just in the blink
missiles.
of time. Yeah, of course. Yes. You catch the arrow immediately in air, and you can hear the skeleton like look around and quickly duck behind them. The rock, almost surprised.
I'll just say.
The rest of you guys don't have any arrows fighting.
I'll just say, guys, I don't think they're friendly. Skelly bobs.
Well, they haven't attacked us yet. It's because you look threatening, Catman.
yeah, put
You
your hands
have
up.
you have a weapon in your hands.
They're skeletons.
Put it away.
Like, seriously, you're a
Where
monk,
do I
you
put
don't
this?
put your back.
On your
On
back.
the
Yeah, where
floor.
would you normally put it?
Have it so it's not immediately.
That's a very good point.
Can you not zip
I
it to
mean,
your
I
face?
mean,
Put it on the
isn't
side
this
of the
during...
wall and use your tail to hold it.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I'll wrap my tail around it and then stick it out behind me so I'm still balancing.
I mean,
Look like-
technically, shouldn't your tail help you do that anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a monk. The fact
I
you
don't
need
want
a
to talk
stick.
about this.
Didn't you
asking-
teach the Tan how to do that?
You are asking technical questions at 10 o'clock, alright?
Did teach this.
Historians, like, they make good points.
Shut up! They are skeletons!
That's a really good question. As much as we can pretend to be as non-threatening as we like, we have a blue dragon with us.
Oh yeah, you need to.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
I might be a bit. That's a good point. I should make a persuasion check. Believe it or not, he's quite charismatic, as you have noted.
Hold
I'm
on,
gonna
but
give him-
Is he as charismatic as a dragon?
Probably
Uh,
more so.
He's more so than other of his kin. He has +9.
Surely it would be a
rolls
disadvantage though, because he's a dragon.
Kind of thing.
+9? Irina is more.
Don't want to fight.
Yes and no, but I'm gonna just go with the flat for now. So he's a 19, and he calls out as well and says, "We're not here to harm, as my friends here have said. But if you do that again, I will come down with the full force. Some zappy lightnings. I don't want to have to do it."
Zappy lightnings.
I mean, just sort of looks and it's like, really? That's the best word you've got?
You
I'm
can't,
trying to not sound intimidating.
I suppose.
Zappy,
can't
zappy,
not
zappy.
sound intimidating by adding a threat on the end of a persuasion.
He will launch. Yeah. Well, he's trying to be both persuasive and intimidate. He's using the carrot and the stick,
Precisely.
or using the carrot as a stick. I'm not sure.
Both. Anyway, and then you hear a voice. It is feminine, but it sounds like it's being spoken through a pair of lungs of synth tanned parchment, and it's frail almost, but something about it sounds unholy. Like there's a discordant kind of echo to it. It says, "Lightning? What good is that against fire?"
Fire, you were saying.
And you
Fire,
see within the smoke and haze, you suddenly see an eruption of flame, and it expands from one length to a tip. It's like this long line of fire, and it kind of swishes in the air, and you feel Candlewick heat up as well, almost in almost like jealousy, like a fiery, like what, kind of like a searing burn.
Someone's burning hotter than me. How dare they?
Yeah, almost. And as this kind of long line of fire parts some of the air, you see beyond it a figure that you see like the brim of a hat, and you suddenly hear the sound of poo against the tiles. And it tramples closer, and then suddenly it sounds like the horse leaps like into the air towards you, but it doesn't land. It suddenly floats there, and an eruption of two flaming eyes appear within the fog. And sitting atop this
Wow.
scorched-looking horse is a figure wrapped up in bandages. Their face is just barely visible behind perhaps a cloak or bandana.
Is that a mummy on a nightmare?
Mother?
It absolutely is. It is a mummified rider sat atop a hellish-looking horse, and they float there in the air, this swirling gas still around them, almost kind of obeying their command. You see the other hand push it aside, revealing all these other skellybobs have arrows and weapons trained on you.
Where's Kinship?
We come in peace. There is no need for any aggression.
Perhaps that would be a good place to leave it until next
Yeah, I
time.
think on that little
Yeah.
bombshell is a good place to end it tonight. But seems they haven't yet like assaulted you. It seems like a tenuous situation, but we'll find out next week whether this comes to blows or not. For now, they have weapon drawn in hand. And in fact, just as one last piece of little artwork. Where is it? Oh, there we go. All right. This is what you're seeing in so that tiny little token. If you click that and full screen it for the viewers,
It's cool as hell.
it is.
Yeehaw.
Hell is a good comparison because that is an infernal looking horse with skulls in places. like in the design.
leaps over to Irina. That would be a really good horse for you.
And it's very evident they have a flame tongue sword in one hand as well, and they're grabbing a hold of the reins with the other.
Like Ghost Rider.
Yeah, honestly, that was my first thought.
Pretty cool. Credit goes to the artists who worked on the first issue of the Arcadia book by Matt Colville and friends. So credit goes to them.
Yeah.
Second issue's out already, actually. In fact, pretty good.
So
Good material in there.
next episodes of what is it? Witch Hunters on Sunday next.
Yep. We've got the Witch Hunters Sunday, where the party is split. One group exploring an abandoned drow outpost overrun with Fomorians, and the other group trying not to die after falling down a massive pit and facing lightning gremlins.
Pretty much.
Then join us on Monday for Curse Breakers, where the party are in possibly one of the most dangerous situations they've been in. They've actually taken damage. It's been a while, where it hasn't been an assassin, I suppose, as they continue their journey through Ravenloft. And then after that, the Last Resort Company, as they continue exploring the Tomb of Annihilation, I guess. And then join us again next week, same time, same place, same people. Yeah.
Same
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.